evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 20th regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. We also have Councillor Brown attending electronically tonight. Tonight's regular meeting of Council is being held in accordance with the Community Charter, Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. So if during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the question period sign-up sheet, which is on the table by the double doors to my left. And please note that Council Procedure Bylaw states that questions will only be taken on staff reports, consent items, or other business items. Looking around the audience, you look like a pretty civilized group tonight, so I'm not going to read out the usual admonition about no clapping, jeering, cheering, or other behaviors that are not in accordance with Council's desire to have this be a decorous public meeting. The first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items, Ms. Gurry, and we have some.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. For late items tonight, we have the addition of Nexus Primary Care Clinic, the PowerPoint and information handout from nurses and nurse practitioners of BC, and the PowerPoint presentation titled Request for Support with Advocacy Efforts to Increase Funding. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Motion for adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Eastmere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Mayor's report. I have somewhat lengthier mayor's report than usual tonight, and I'm going to begin with three sad items. As many of you may know by now, Bill Manners, who was a frequent attendant at Council, a very strong community advocate and spokesperson for the Dover Community Association, passed on July 17th. He came to Nanaimo in 1970 from Vancouver. He quickly embraced the city that he would proudly call his home for more than 5 decades. He developed a deep appreciation for Nanaimo's natural beauty, rich history, and the unique spirit of its people. That appreciation inspired a lifelong commitment to community involvement and civic engagement. Throughout the years, Bill dedicated himself to many causes and interests, always motivated by desire to make Nanaimo a better place. He was a passionate, thoughtful advocate and contributor to public discussions and a voice for the people of Nanaimo, whether championing the preservation of our community's history, contributing to local initiatives, or sharing his perspective on issues that matter to residents. Bill's commitment to Nanaimo never wavered. He cared deeply about this city and its future. His knowledge, dedication, and willingness to speak on behalf of the community earned him the respect of many. He was not shy about advocating both publicly and privately for those things that he thought were important for this city. He leaves behind a lasting legacy of service, advocacy, and love for the city he cherished. On behalf of our council, I wish to extend our heartfelt sympathies to Bill's partner of 25 years, Nikki, his brother Frank, and all his family, friends, and loved ones. We hope they find comfort in knowing that Bill's contributions to Nanaimo will be remembered and appreciated for many years to come. He helped shape the community he loved, and Nanaimo was better because of his passion and unwavering commitment to this city. Also saddened to pass on behalf of City Council and staff, our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Tom Hickey, who passed away suddenly. Tom joined the City of Nanaimo in 1999 as a Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture after relocating from Powell River. Throughout his distinguished career with the city, he served in a number of key leadership roles, including Director of Engineering and Public Works beginning in 2007, and later as General Manager of Community Services from 2011 until his retirement in 2015. Tom's contributions to our city were significant and lasting. He brought a deep commitment to public service in every role he undertook. His leadership helped shape and strengthen the services and amenities that residents continue to enjoy to this day. Colleagues knew Tom as a thoughtful and respected leader who cared deeply about both the community and the people he worked alongside. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Tom was someone who truly lived life to the fullest. He cherished time with family and friends, embraced new experiences, and was known for his positive outlook. I think it would be hard for you to find a photograph of Tom Hickey that didn't have him with a smile on his face. His enthusiasm for life left a lasting impression on those fortunate enough to know him. He will be remembered not only through his many contributions to the city of Nanaimo, but also through the relationships he built and the lives he touched during his many years of service. Again, on behalf of council and staff, we extend our deepest sympathies to Tom's family and friends during this difficult time. Our thoughts are with them as they mourn the loss of a devoted family man and valued member of our community. On Sunday, no doubt many of you were either participants in or attendees at the Silly Boat Races, one of Nanaimo's unique and crazy, wacky things that we do to raise money for the Child Development Center. The public face of that for over 20 years was someone known to many of us, our friend Michelle Kocharik, who passed away with cancer on July the 3rd this year. Her long service to the Child Development Center was the subject of much admiration and respect. In that work, she touched the lives of thousands of parents and children with disabilities in our community. She was a devoted mother and grandmother to her large family, and she found her greatest joy in dealing with them, loving them, and providing to them an example of what real community is about, what love and compassion and empathy are about. She was known for her radiant smile. I think it fair to say that if you knew Michelle, like Tom, hard to find a picture or anything about her where she wasn't smiling. She was easy with her hugs and caring for all who came across her. When she retired from the Child Development Center, it wasn't very long before she was back at it. They missed her. And I might tell you that someone I know there fairly well candidly told me on Sunday that essentially the Child Development Centers had to hire 3 people to replace her over time because she gave that much work and devotion to the Child Development Center. So on behalf of this community, I want to extend sincere condolences to her family, to all of those who worked with her and loved her and knew her. She was a prime example of what real service is, what caring and compassion are all about, and gave her life both professionally and privately to it. She is going to be truly missed in this community. All right. Let's talk about some more mundane things. Well, maybe not mundane. General election information for interested candidates. We've already had a general upcoming candidate information session earlier this month. There was a second one held in partnership between the City of Nanaimo and the Regional District of Nanaimo that will take place on Wednesday, August the 12th from 6 to 9 p.m. These sessions will cover the same material and provide an opportunity to learn more about the role of elected officials and the election process. Attendance is drop-in and registration is not required. The second session will be, as I say, on August the 12th at the Tainamara Seaside Spa Resort and Conference Center at 1155 Resort Drive, Parksville in the Grand Strathcona Room. Nomination packages will be available for those interested in running as a candidate in the 2026 general local election beginning Tuesday, August the 4th, and packages can be picked up from the Legislative Services Office here at the City, located in the first floor of City Hall, or can be requested electronically by emailing elections@nanaimo.ca. The nomination package contains information for those interested in running in the election, including rules regarding election signage, required number of nominators, nomination deposits, and other resources. There's no fee to pick up a nomination package. However, a $100 nomination document filing fee will be charged when filing nomination documents in accordance with the city's general election bylaw. On a public interest note, the deadline for the 2026 census collection is coming up, and the City of Nanaimo is encouraging residents who haven't yet completed theirs to do so before July 31st, 2026. Census workers are visiting households and contacting residents by phone in Nanaimo to remind residents to fill theirs out and provide support to those who may have difficulty in completing one. The census is an important collection of information for the city and the community. It takes place every 5 years and provides vital data for business and economic development, healthcare and social services and community services. The information collected guarantees or ensures that Nanaimo gets its fair share of funding from the federal and provincial governments for various public services and programs. The city also uses information from the census to plan for new community amenities, park, recreation services, infrastructure, and more. So for those of you who may have some philosophical or other concerns about census collection, I would remind you that you are, and I say this quite candidly and bluntly, you are doing a disservice to your fellow citizens because the governments rely on that information in order to deliver those services in a fair and equitable way and ensure that the citizens of Nanaimo get the benefits they deserve. We are looking for new applicants to be our 2027-2029 Poet Laureate. Serving as the city's literary ambassador, the Poet Laureate raises the profile of literary arts in Nanaimo by creating and presenting poetic works and activities that reflect our community, our place, and our times. The successful candidate will engage and inspire residents while collaborating with the community partners to celebrate the power of poetry. Since it was established back in 2014, the City of Nanaimo's Poet Laureates have included Naomi Beth Walken, 2014 to 17, Tina Biello, 2017 to 2020, Kamal Parmar, 2021 to 2024, and current Poet Laureate Neil Serkin, 2024 to 2026. They have each made meaningful contributions to Nanaimo's literary community by fostering creativity, encouraging dialogue, and connecting people through poetry. I think the last public occasion any of us had the pleasure to hear our current Poet Laureate was, of course, on Canada Day, July the 1st. And on a happy note, it was 30 years ago that Nanaimo celebrated a friendship arrangement with the city of then Iwatsuki in Japan, which since that time has become subsumed by a larger city called Saitama, 1.36 million people, about 10 times the size of Nanaimo. And it was the great honor for the city on Tuesday, July 14th, to welcome a delegation from Saitama, along with representatives from the Consulate General of Japan in Vancouver, as we celebrated the 30th anniversary of that friendship agreement. The visit provided an excellent opportunity to strengthen the long-standing relationships between our two communities and to showcase Nanaimo's many attributes. Throughout the day, our guests were toured around the city and introduced to a number of Nanaimo's highlights. They also joined members of Nanaimo's Japanese Cultural Society, known affectionately as the Seven Potatoes Society, as the pronunciation of Nanaimo in Japanese approximates seven potatoes. There was a special commemorative ceremony and tree planting, marking this important milestone in our friendship. The delegation was provided with an overview of two exciting local projects that incorporate Japanese design influences, demonstrating the ongoing cultural connections between our communities. They also visited the Nanaimo Port Authority, where they received a presentation on the region's economic and transportation strengths, followed by a boat tour to Duke Point that highlighted Nanaimo's strategic waterfront and port assets. The day concluded with a dinner hosted by Council, providing an opportunity for fellowship, conversation, and the continuing strengthening of relationships between Nanaimo and our Japanese friends. It was a truly wonderful day, and on behalf of Council and the community, I would like to express very sincere appreciation to our guests for making the journey to Nanaimo to celebrate the significant anniversary. It was a 4-day flying visit all the way from Japan. Their visit served as a meaningful reminder of the value of international friendships, particularly in this troubled world, and the lasting connections that can grow over decades of cooperation, cultural exchange, and mutual respect. And I would also like to extend a very sincere thank you to city staff, whose hard work behind the scenes ensured that every aspect of the visit was a success, from coordinating schedules and logistics to organizing events, tours, presentations, and hospitality. Their professionalism and attention to detail made this memorable celebration possible. I would particularly like to single out Council's Administrative Assistant, Donna Stennis, who worked with a team from Parks and Rec and others. They did a fabulous job. Their efforts reflected Nanaimo at its very best and were instrumental in creating a warm and welcoming experience for our guests. And that is the end of my report. Thank you for listening. I appreciate this. We have nothing to rise and report on, Ms. Curry. We do have a presentation, though, from Heather Gagne and Catherine Jansen, Nexus Primary Care Clinic, request for advocacy for increased funding for the clinic, and Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I'll declare a conflict as I sit on the board, and there is a request from council, so thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll give Councillor Armstrong a minute to absent herself. And if you folks could please step forward, introduce yourselves for the records, and the floor is yours. Welcome, and appreciate you taking the time tonight.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Heather Gagne. I'm a nurse practitioner at the Nexus Primary Care Clinic, and I'm here with my colleague, Kari Yonker, who is also a nurse practitioner at the clinic. We're speaking as the medical directors in representation of our primary care clinic and the nonprofit organization who runs
Don't be shy about leaning more into the mic either.
it. Can you hear me okay?
And maybe someone could raise the podium.
Sorry,
Does
is that
raise.
better? Can you hear me okay?
One second.
Because I'm tall. I see.
My granny, who was 5 feet tall, used to say height was a great advantage.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to speak with council today in hopes of getting your advocacy and sustainability of the funding of our clinic. I'll pass over to Kari, who will give you a bit of background on who we are.
Please.
Do you change the slide by pressing this? Okay.
And again, speak into the mic, please.
Yes, thank you very much.
You can just push your friend a little more to the right there, and then we'll
Okay.
get better. Thank you.
Okay, so Nexus Clinic, and it's located in South Nanaimo. We opened in 2020. We were one of 3 pilot nurse practitioner-led clinics in BC, the others being in Victoria and Surrey. We now have over 4,500 patients in Nanaimo, and we're still growing. We've had 6 years of steady, significant growth, and we have like a team-based care model. We work together with a number of nurse practitioners, nurses, and a pharmacist, and we feel that we've proven that this model works, and the demand is real, and the demand is rising, but the demand is already rising past what we can even accommodate.
Again, closer to the
Okay.
mic was
It looks
better.
like
Don't
I'm
be
doing
shy.
the next slide too is me. So I also want to answer what you're wondering, I'm sure. What is a nurse practitioner? And so in quick, plain language, NPs, nurse practitioners, are registered nurses with graduate level training, licensed to practice autonomously. We provide primary care comparable to a GP, but grounded in the nursing model. Our core values are patient-centered care, shared decision-making, prevention, trauma-informed, and inclusive approach.
So I get the privilege of speaking to what makes our clinic exceptional. So I'm here representing a number of professionals that are passionate about primary care. So I'm going to take a moment just to speak to what primary care really means at Nexus. So not only does our clinic practice full spectrum primary care, so infancy to end of life, we offer a number of other services alongside our allied health services, including chronic disease management. This looks like the long-term management of things like diabetes and heart disease, addictions care with opiate agonist therapy, trans care, readiness hormones, and gender-affirming care, dermoscopy and minor skin procedures, long-acting contraceptives insertions like IUDs and the Nexplanon. We offer in-office asthma and COPD diagnostics and spirometry, allergy immunotherapy, and interventional pain management with myoactivation and joint injections. So these are additional services beyond just primary care of day-to-day appointments with patients.
So, this is the meat of the presentation. Nexus is funded by the province through a primary care network contract, and we have a fixed overhead allotment per provider. And that overhead funding has not changed since 2020. However, the costs of operating, rent, supplies, and salaries have risen steadily with inflation every single year. And we're currently running at a deficit. We have very few levers available to close that gap under our current funding model. We have had to let staff go because we couldn't afford them anymore. So we are being asked to do more for the patients with the same dollars that we had 6 years ago. So I think we're on our last slide.
So our ask of mayor and council is for advocacy for additional funding in order for us to have sustainable operations to continue providing the good care to the Nanaimo community, and hopefully in collaboration in future for an expansion of our clinic or an opening of a second location. We do have one more person we'd like to welcome to the microphone who sits on our board of directors and is our patient voice.
Good evening. If you can introduce yourself for the record.
I'm very
and,
tall.
And no, let's raise it. I don't want you getting up with back trouble
It's
tomorrow
fine.
morning.
I won't be here too long. Thank you so much for hearing me this evening as well. Thank you to my team. My name is Dana. I'm a recent member of the board of directors here at the Nexus Clinic, and they wanted me to describe to you my experience being part of the clinic. So I moved here to the island in 2020 with my family. At that time in Vancouver, I had a physician. That was the typical care that I was used to. I came here and I had heard it was going to be impossible to find another doctor. And that was my experience. I called every physician from Duncan to Comox, and I was often laughed off the phone. Somehow, I got word of a new clinic opening, and I was lucky they took me on. But I knew nothing about nurse practitioners or what that meant. I was just happy for care. Well, I have to say, my care has gone from what I will describe as like a transaction-based healthcare model. I'll go to my doctor and say, please help me with X, and they did. But here at the nurse practitioner's office, it's a holistic approach to healthcare. They take the time to get to know me and my family and my kids. They ask me about, what am I eating? What's my exercise? What do I do for work? How stressed am I? Are my kids causing me stress? How's that stress impacting my mental health? It's an incredible change, absolutely overwhelmingly positive. And I will say that the clinic can do maybe 90% of what my family needs. The remaining 10%, we've been referred out for the tests, the services we need, and we've gotten those needs met quickly. So I would say that the nurse practitioner model is the way forward. It helps people holistically, that's been my experience, but specifically with this team is world class. Heather asked if I would come be on the board. I was so excited to be on her board because any chance I have to help this team, I was excited to sign up. So, thank you.
We just thank you, Dana. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for listening to our presentation, and we thank you for your time and continued support of this clinic.
Do we stay for questions or shall we sit? We stay for
I was going to say, don't leave yet. Councillor Thorpe, then Councillor Manley, then Councillor Perino, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, if I may, to the delegation. Thank you, ladies, for coming this evening. You did very well at the microphone, and I appreciate hearing from you. My wife is a retired nurse, and she has told me in no uncertain terms about the value that nurse practitioners bring to our healthcare system. An increasingly important role, I would say, in our times. Just a couple of quick questions. You mentioned, of course, that you're funded by the provincial government and your funding has not increased over the past 6 years. Have you directly advocated to the government and communicated your frustration to them? And if so, have you had any response?
Yes, so I would say we have brought forward our concerns to the NP Council, and that is who has direct communication with the provincial government. And that's not unique to our clinic. So NP clinics across the province are faced with the same thing, the fixed overhead to manage all operations.
Right.
Yeah, we have no other source of revenue to increase the operations for our clinic.
Right, thank you very much. And if I may, Your Worship, I'm going to throw out a suggestion that you might want to consider writing council, us, a formal letter requesting that we write a letter of support for you, and we can take that under advisement. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Manley, Councillor Prino.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the presentation. I was one of the 20 or 30,000 people in this community that did not have a family doctor for a number of years, and thankfully I have a doctor now, and I know it makes a huge difference. So I really appreciate nurse practitioners and the work that you're doing. So I was going to ask similar questions to Councillor Thorpe. Is it basically like a letter advocacy that you're looking for as a start? And then I see collaboration on future expansion. Are you're outgrowing your current facilities? The demand is high, right?
Yes, the demand is very high. And yes, a letter of support would go very far for us in our advocacy for NP clinics like ours. And what was your second part of the question? Sorry.
Just on the expansion, are you the only NP clinic in
Yes.
town? And so,
The only non-health authority clinic in Nanaimo. Yeah.
Okay.
So the only contracted NP clinic.
and so you're looking to expand in the future, the near future?
Yeah, we have a passionate group who want to continue to expand attachment for patients in Nanaimo, but our current location has limited us in terms of how many patients and how many providers we can see through our space.
So would you be looking at an additional clinic, or would you be looking just at a larger space?
We're considering both.
Okay.
Yeah, I think our model has proven successful, and so I think we could open a second clinic. There's also, of course, the caveat that we have a good thing as a team right now, and it would be easy to just grow the existing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for your presentation. I'm sure you got a lot of support around this table. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Prino.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate it, and thank you for the presentation. And I've been in healthcare forever, so I'm familiar with the work that you do, and thank goodness you are doing it, so keep going. Just a few questions, though, for you. Are you taking patients off the main data list that's coming out? You are taking them as they come. Okay, good to know. Are you a society?
Yes.
You are. Are you doing any fundraising?
We're nonprofit, so we're not a charity.
Okay.
No, actually, we're really busy with
Yes.
the patients.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I just wondered it, sometimes organizations will hire separate people to do fundraising for them. So my next question is, did you or have you contacted the Nanaimo District Hospital Foundation and talked to them about what they do and how it might possibly be an opportunity for them to consider funding some of your work?
I don't think we have, but I think we have
You need to do that.
somebody on our board that may be also on that. So I'm sure we can get some
Yeah.
information there.
That's important. And the patients that you serve now, are they coming throughout from this region, or is it just from Nanaimo?
We're supposed to just be serving people from Nanaimo, but sometimes they do move out of district, so
And so
we
you can
don't
keep them.
immediately fire them.
So-
We keep them until they find healthcare.
Good to know. Okay, so the only other thing I want to leave with you is when you send a letter to Mayor and Council asking us for a letter of support, I want you to do the same thing to the Regional Hospital District. Okay, that's important because we serve the entire region, right? So from Bowser down to Ladysmith. And it encompasses healthcare, and we can maybe help to give you a letter of support there too. okay? Because we want you to keep going and we want you to grow. So we still have a lot of patients without a healthcare person, and I know you'd be the best, so that's great. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and for the critical frontline health work you're doing in our community. When you ask for collaboration on future expansion, functionally, what kind of help are you looking for from the city?
I mean, I think we've been curious about other models in other municipalities that have been supporting primary care for attachment of their community. And so we're curious to kind of hear from the city what that looks like in Nanaimo and what kind of commercial space might be used as Nanaimo grows to meet these needs, how primary care could be embedded into these communities. Yeah.
So for example, when we're talking about building a community center in the south end, we were talking about maybe having co-located like daycare or health spaces. Is that the kind of place that you want to be?
Absolutely, yeah. We serve South Nanaimo and we see how underserviced South Nanaimo is. If you guys don't know, our clinic is near the Country Grocer in Chase River, and we certainly see a number of South Nanaimo people needing access to care. So as South Nanaimo grows, I think there's a real opportunity for primary care to be embedded into more community service buildings.
And sorry, is that the end of town that you're hoping to stay in, or are you willing to move based on where there's availability of commercial space?
Yeah, I mean, we would be willing to travel anywhere in the city to find a spot that would serve our patients well. With the current climate, as much as we serve the people in South Nanaimo, we have people traveling from Lanceville from Cedar in our whole catchment for care. So in an ideal world, yes, you would be in a real embedded small community where you could walk to your primary care health center, but in reality, people are commuting to our clinic all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. Your contract, who is it with? Is it the Ministry of Health? Is it Island Health? The Ministry as opposed to Island Health?
Yes, the Ministry of Health.
Okay. And your incorporated society, you said?
Yep, a
That's how you function?
nonprofit society, yep.
Individually here in Nanaimo, or part of, or you're simply an office, so to speak, of a larger nonprofit?
Just us.
Just us, okay. Is that the model, the way these clinics function across the province? Can you tell me?
It varies. It really does vary clinic to clinic. So primary care contracted clinics, whether they're nurse practitioner led or they're a blend of GP and NP clinics, those are either for-profit or non-for-profit clinics. And then there's the health authority clinics that also, of course, have family physicians and nurse practitioners doing primary care.
Okay. Thank you. I don't think we'll have trouble when we get your formal request, but I make no promises, but much appreciate your presentation tonight and the work you do. I think everyone's conscious of how important access to health care is. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we have committee minutes just for receipt. Motion for adoption of the consent items, unless there's somebody, and we'll get Councillor Armstrong in, sorry. A motion for adoption of consent items. Councillor Brown, did you have a question? Sorry.
No, Your Worship, I'm just going to request that 10C1 be removed from consent.
Okay. 10C1, non-market housing delivery system pilot. All right. Any other requests for removal? It's been moved, Councillor. Sorry, Ms. Gurry.
Yes, Your Worship. Has it been seconded, the entire?
Yes. Councillor Perino?
Okay, and then you can vote on everything but the one that Councillor Brown wished to have removed.
So adoption of all the consent items save C1. All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries. We're on to non-market housing delivery system pilot, C1. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Worship, and I'm not going to re-debate it because I know we did have a lot of a lengthy conversation at the governance priorities committees, but I feel fairly strongly about this. I want to register my opposition to it as a council vote. I think I asked three basic questions of the delegations, and I do think the answers were very unsatisfactory. And I'm going to chalk that up to just a lack of communication on what they're hoping to actually achieve. And I just would say that I would hope council would actually turn this down as well. I think staff provided an option in which the delegates plus anybody else could make a submission to run kind of a program that might bring people together to explore some options for housing in the community. I think of the two, that was a far better approach. If council was to go down this route, I'm not convinced it's the best route to go down, but if council was going to, I think staff provided an out that council should have heeded. So with that, your worship, I'll end my comments and just say I'm strongly opposed to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thanks. Just speaking to this item, it's on the floor. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. With our procurement policy, the full pilot wasn't able to be funded, and then staff came back with two options: one to go with support and principal of a $75,000 pilot with the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation and the Nanaimo Housing Working Group and the Anchor Corporation, and then also to go for a $300,000 RFP out. And I think, in the discussion, what was clear to me was that council, there was a high degree of agreement and consensus that we did need to start taking forward steps towards supporting non-market housing development in the community. Our staff have done an amazing job pulling out all stops on trying to promote non-market housing with other means outside of directly getting involved in non-market housing development. But we are still falling far short. Coming up is our housing needs assessment report, and we're producing, between 0 and 100. This year it's minus 30 units of non-market housing, and we need 400 units out to 2040. So there's a huge need. And to get that non-market housing, we need to bring together four things. Low-cost financing is important, and the provincial government has stepped back the amount of funding towards non-market housing. We need to bring building innovation to bring the cost of developing multifamily units down. We also have to bring land to the table, be it through the city, through nonprofits that own land and other institutions, and then also figure out how we're going to manage this land with our non-market housing providers. And there's a huge gap in coordination. Now, exactly what the first step is to bring that coordination about is up for debate, and I think this is the debate here, but we do need to take that first step. And mulling over the different paths, I've been humming and hawing either direction for me. Could work, but ultimately I think the $75,000 contribution by the city, what it does is it brings and what we're going to have staff do, and the support and principle is that staff's going to go away with the different collaborators and come back with clear deliverables of what that $75,000 will go towards. But ultimately what that kicks off is everybody coming to the table and discussing exactly what do we need to deliver non-market housing at scale, because there's different models. The city could develop a corporation that owns the land. It could, build the housing and manage it. We could just have a community land trust, and then we have developers come in, develop the land, and then managed by our nonprofits. There's multiple different things, and that needs to be figured out. But we also need to move forward with a pilot that actually shows that building affordability is possible. And so I think what the $75,000 will do, will take those first initial steps of what could this greater coordination function look like, and also what could an initial pilot look like that will actually get units in the ground. And so I'm confident that with the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation in the conversation, the City of Nanaimo, the Nanaimo Housing Working Group, and the Anchor Corporation, which is bringing in new ideas from outside this community, those next steps can be started out, and I don't want to stop the momentum from starting to take them, and who knows what will lead into maybe an RFP down the road to complete the thing, or more information will be brought back to council to maybe go ahead with a housing development corporation. So I'm in support of taking this first step and hope council continue on with this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. When this matter last came before council, I indicated I am placing enormous trust in folks I know very well involved with the Nanaimo Housing Working Group. I still have significant concerns. I'm going to support this regardless, but I would also note that we all received on Council Day a letter from the Nanaimo Homelessness Leadership Table indicating that they hope that they will be, how shall I say, participants in this and be consulted given the working knowledge they have. I'm not convinced that after the systems planning organization, the money council put into that process, rising out of the Health and Housing Task Force, that we are going to see any real progress in this. But candidly, given the seriousness of the problem, the seeming inability for various silos in government to get together to ensure that the most vulnerable amongst us receive the kind of care and housing they need, I'm again prepared to support it, but I do so, as I say, with a fair bit of reluctance, with a great deal of trust placed in the people involved. I will expect something out of this $75,000 of the citizens' money, something that I can understand, something that will hopefully include some kind of a reasonable business plan if further funds are requested, that will ensure that we get value for our dollar, that this is not just some goose chase that makes us feel good about trying to move the ball down the road, but in fact doesn't accomplish anything. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I share some of the concerns that you've just expressed, and I can understand Councillor Brown's position on this. I was certainly of two minds. I am going to support this as I did originally, but I think as you've referenced trust, yes, we need to have trust, but as I indicated in the earlier debate, we also have to be very aware of our duties to show good governance. And for me, that comes back to being told, being assured that deliverables, specific deliverables on this project and this pilot would be made available to us and be approved by council before we go any further down this road. So on that basis, I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any further speakers. All those in favor? Councillor Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Mayor Krog, Councillor Thorpe, Perino, Manley. Those opposed? Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Brown. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Council, for this. The next is item 11, delegations unrelated to agenda items. James Boak, Riparian Area Protection Regulations and the City of Nanaimo's Development Permit Review. Mr. Boak, good evening.
Your Worship, I need to declare a conflict again because it's on Barrington Road and I've already declared a conflict.
Please, just give Councillor Armstrong a minute to absent herself.
Okay. So it's
Mr. Boak, you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
When you have a minute left, I'll remind you have a minute left.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself for the record, please?
Thank you. Is the green button to advance the slide? Thank you. My name is James Boak. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm a Nanaimo resident. I live near the Rock City wetland, and I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not speaking on behalf of any group or organization. I have no special knowledge of biology, hydrology, law, or Nanaimo bylaws, but even as a layperson, it seems obvious to me that things are not right at 3400 Barrington. When I first learned about the development proposed at 3400 Barrington, I was concerned about misalignment with the city plan, but more recently, I've learned a lot about water and the wetland there and how it's connected to the surrounding ecology. I tend to get lost in the technical jargon and the complicated history, but based on public records, this is my best summation of what's happened there. So in 2009, the first bioinventory report was commissioned by Hazelwood Holdings in support of a steep slope development on other properties surrounding the Rock City wetland. I note this report because it documented surface water flow from the large wetland to Caudle Lake, which is a fish-bearing water body. Fast forward to 2019, when the province enacts the new Riparian Area Protection Regulations, often called RAPR. The next year, the City of Nanaimo Council approved the rezoning and subdivision of that area, which created the boundaries of 3400 Barrington. As far as I know, there's no documentation that Rapper was considered at that time. And when I read the 2020 staff report to council, there were major concerns raised then, including wildfire hazard, community opposition, inadequate water and sewer services, and the location was too far from public transportation. I find it particularly jarring that the likely measures needed to reduce the fire hazard are the opposite of what would be needed to protect the wetland. In 2022, the new OCP, Nanaimo Reimagined, is published. This award-winning report was a major accomplishment that must have taken years of work. It's truly a great vision for Nanaimo. In the intervening years, the property was purchased by Highland Properties, and in 2024, a new development permit was submitted, which included a new bioinventory report. This second report documented connectivity from the smaller, unmapped wetland to the larger wetland, and from there to Cottle Creek and to Cottle Lake. This is critical because surface connection to fish habitat is the criteria for Rapper being applied. It's pretty black and white, and the report does not reference Rapper. This year, city staff approved the development permit, despite it clearly contradicting the new city plan, and there's still no public record of Rapper being met. I want to emphasize how important the city plan is. These values aren't just nice aspirational goals. When we erode wetlands, we erode the health and safety of everyone who lives here in Nanaimo. Good planning is our roadmap to sustainable growth. Without it, short-term benefits are outweighed by the long-term costs of maintaining roads, sewers, stormwater, and other city services. So, in my mind, this raises 5 concerns that I fear are being played out across the city. First is that rezoning seems to be a one-way ratchet, just increasing development density and environmental destruction. 2, alignment with city plan does not seem to be a criteria for development permits. 3, it seems the city is overly reliant on QEP assessments without sufficient technical review. 4, from my limited perspective, it looks to me like provincial riparian protection regulations apply to this development, and more detailed environmental assessments should have been done before rezoning. But if I'm misinformed or I don't properly understand the situation, I'd be happy to learn more. And finally, we now seem to have no way to fix this. I think we all want to make this right. So here are my suggestions. First, please align the city policies and processes for protecting streams and wetlands
1 minute.
with provincial best practices. I understand the RDN has a framework that aligns with Rapper. I want to trust that my city is protecting water and critically endangered ecosystems. 2, align the current zoning in Nanaimo with the OCP. This may involve downzoning some properties. And according to Section 458 of the Local Governments Act, the city is not liable for any reduction in property value or other losses due to adopting an OCP or zoning bylaw. Conservation zoning has been done successfully by Vancouver, Highlands in Victoria, and on Denman Island. 3, increase staff scientific and technical review capacity, so critical review of development permits can be completed without slowing down development review. And finally, I hear there's no process to fix this, so make a new process. Nobody can be perfect every time. Let's acknowledge we're all human and we're all trying our best, but when we learn new information, we realize we've made a mistake, we need a way to go back and reconsider our past decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Perino, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a very quick question. Thank you for your presentation. And I just wondered if you got a hold of any staff as you were making your presentation. Did you get a hold of any staff to check your opinions or your ideas or any of your summations?
For this specific presentation, no.
Okay, so you haven't talked to anyone, no one from an environmental capacity as far as what we do as far as following what the provincial rules are and that kind of thing?
That's right.
Right? Okay, thank you. I'll have a question for staff when the delegation's done. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the delegation? Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the timeline. When you speak to revising the development environmental standards to provincial best practices, does that go beyond the simple mapped and unmapped language referring to watercourse setbacks?
I believe that would be the minimum. I think that, again, I'm not an expert in this, but if you please consult with experts on this topic. But as far as I understand, yeah, I think that would be the minimum. But there are best practices outlined in the Develop with Care guidelines that would go above and beyond. That would be better.
Okay, thank you. And I'll have a question through to staff as well.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned that the RDN has a different process around wrapper. Could you explain what the difference is between what the RDN does and what the city does?
Not in any great detail. My understanding is the key difference is that their regulations are triggered and they consider the streams in the same with the same definition as the provincial regulations, and don't depend on a city map or a map prepared by the RDN.
And you mentioned a couple of communities that had conservation zoning, and we have environmental DPAs. When you mentioned those communities, were you talking about areas that had been downzoned as conservation? So they had changed the zoning from one type of zoning to another for conservation purposes? Correct.
And the BC Supreme Court seems to be supporting municipalities doing that, not in a capricious or like, you're not picking on any individual, but when there is a legitimate public good being served, in particular the city plan that has been carefully considered and been through a lot of detailed work, the cities have the authority to do that, and they're not liable for how that affects individual property owners, their property value or the losses.
Okay, thank you. I would note that our city plan does call this a suburban neighborhood, so it doesn't include density like this. Thank you.
Yes, I can see Councillor Gusselbrock. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Worship. Just through you to the delegation, I just looking at the bullet points there, number 1, I just wondering where he got the information, or where you got the information that Nanaimo's development standards are not in line with wrapper or best practices.
Specifically, I'm talking about the criteria for when wrapper is, or rather when the environmental assessments are triggered and when wrapper should be applied. And that, as far as I understand, is applied based on the streams and mapping done by the City of Nanaimo, which is a different definition from when these regulations apply per wrapper.
And my question is, where did you get that information that we're not currently doing it in accordance with DAPR?
Because this is what we saw happen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any further questions to the delegation. Mr. Polk, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Eastmer, you had a question for staff, and Councillor Perino as well, I believe.
Thank you. My question to staff was around the point around the reconsideration process, and I just want to make sure that my understanding is correct, because if a decision on a development permit is made through the delegated authority process, and a decision is made, council has the ability to recall the decision if it is denied, but if it is approved and council has an issue with it, there's no process.
Through your worship to Councillor Eastmer, that is correct as far as the opportunity to reconsider. So but just to add a bit of context to, if an application comes before council, if it weren't delegated, but still complied with guidelines, then council must issue. So it's a matter of whether or not it complies with guidelines as to whether or not it's issued. That's the law around development permits. And then you're correct with respect to if a permit application is delegated and then denied by the delegated authority, the applicant has the ability to appeal to council, because it would be denied based on the fact that it's not compliant with the guidelines. So the applicant can appeal that denial to council, and then council can consider approval or denial. But back to my earlier comment on context, if an application's consistent with guidelines, whether it's considered by delegated approval or by council, it must be approved.
Thank you. And just one other question, if I may. I had asked staff about the wording where in our bylaw it says mapped, and it is missing the part that says unmapped and unmapped. And there was a suggestion that that would potentially be a minor housekeeping amendment. Do you know, has that been followed up on at any point?
Through your worship to Councillor Eastmer's question, I think I can probably, I'll speak to that. I'll also tie it into the reference to the process that the RDN uses, that the delegation referenced. So the city has extensively since the 1990s, well before the provincial riparian area regulations and then the subsequent 2019 riparian area protection regulations, had, I guess we have the benefit of knowledge of many of the environmentally sensitive lands within the city. So we've had mapped watercourses, mapped terrestrial ecosystems as well, terrestrial herbaceous ecosystems. So we do have mapping that sets by bylaw setbacks. So those setbacks through an assessment that was done meet or beat the provincial riparian area protection regulation requirements. In the regional district of Nanaimo, for instance, they don't have the benefit of having the extensive mapping. They don't have the watercourses mapped. The biologist, the qualified environmental professional, will review property, and then with the assistance of, usually it's a BC land surveyor, they work together to map the wetlands, and through applying the riparian area protection regulations, establish an appropriate streamside protection enhancement area. So that's not based on bylaw, it's based on the development permit scheme that has the qualified environmental professional review unmapped wetlands and establish an appropriate streamside protection environmental enhancement area. In Nanaimo's case, we have mapped wetlands, clearly identified in our bylaws, and clear setbacks established, and those exceed the riparian area protection, meet or exceed the riparian area protection regulations. For unmapped watercourses, we still rely on professionals, as the RDN does, to identify, to review the riparian area protection regulations if they'd apply, or other professional practice guidelines that would apply, and recommend appropriate setbacks. So they are protected even though they're not mapped, if that helps.
It does, but through the chair, I think what we're looking for, or what I'm looking for, and what I heard from staff was that language did need to be added into our zoning bylaw. And I think it used to be in there for whatever reason. It's not there now, but it's a minor housekeeping amendment, and yes, it's theoretically, yes, like it is being considered, even if it doesn't say and unmapped. But I think it's the explicit statement that would provide a bit more confidence in the policy.
Through your worship to Councillor Eastmer, I guess, yeah, the practice is, yes, that they are assessed, but there could be additional language added.
Mm-hmm. I saw Mr. Lindsay jump on there. I'm not sure if he was intending to weigh in.
If I can just add on to what Mr. Holm is saying, I just want to make sure everyone's clear that whether a watercourse on our map a watercourse in the city is mapped or not, it's still subject to wrapper. So just like the assessment that was done on this property and on the smaller of the wetlands, which has had a lot of the focus in recent weeks, it was found not to be applicable to provincial legislation. The good news is that the city has a higher level of protection than the provincial and federal regulations and policies in place. So our regulations, our watercourse regulations, take into account more than fish habitat. We have a longstanding practice of considering all impacts on the environment. So because of that, there's actually a setback and protection from the smaller wetland. It is not wrapper. The larger wetland was and continues to be identified as wrapper, RAR before that. So not only does it have the city setback, but it also has the recommendations that come from the QUEEP. So I want to make sure that we don't leave this conversation without understanding the city absolutely complies with the provincial framework, with the provincial legislation, like Mr. Holm has said. And Mr. Holm and I have the benefit of, we both worked at the RDA and at the city, so we're familiar with both situations. And I would say that both are under the provincial framework, slightly different approach, just given the size of the regional district and the unknown details around watercourses. And like Mr. Holm has mentioned, we've had a long history in Nanaimo of protecting and proudly protecting these ecosystems and these watercourses. Many examples around the city where we've had development proceed and we've still been able to protect these sensitive areas. So I hope there's no question about whether or not we comply with provincial regulations. We absolutely do not only comply with wrapper, but we exceed it.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate that. And the piece that I was saying about the language where adding the and unmapped portion, you can confirm that that's a conversation that we did have, right?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, that's absolutely something we can look at as part of the housekeeping. I didn't want to leave the impression that because it wasn't in there today, that watercourses are not subject to wrapper. They are absolutely subject. Whether something shows up tomorrow that we weren't aware of, it would absolutely be subject to the wrapper regulations and a QUEEP review.
Thank you. In order, Councillor Manley and then Councillor Gesselbrock. And sorry, Councillor Perino, but you never put yourself on the list here, Councillor Perino, and you know the rules, but go ahead. You're on.
Okay. Thank you so much. I was just so glad to see Mr. Lindsay jump in on this, and I felt that the presentation was very well done and very succinct concerns. And so I just have really two very quick questions. Should this application have been denied because of something that we didn't do, that we didn't comply to? Because my understanding was very clearly that we did everything that we needed to do. So is there something about it that should have been denied? And the other question is the riparian regulations, we followed everything that we were supposed to. And certainly from the presentation that we just saw, certainly for the citizens, they're not feeling very comfortable. And I just wanted to especially hear it from you, Mr. Lindsay, as our CAO. Was there something that we did not do that we should have denied some portion of this?
Thank you, Your Worship, Councillor Perino. Certainly not from staff's perspective. In fact, I would say Council went one step further and actually amended your bylaw to increase the setback around the smaller wetland, which was the wetland that was originally had the most amount of concern. So if the development ends up not proceeding, they'd be subject to the 15-meter setback, which I believe they're at. Sorry, Mr. Holm can confirm, but I believe they're at 12 meters from memory at this point. So the wetland is being protected, the larger wetland is being protected. And like I said, much of this, the city, we always have to balance, development with protecting these sensitive ecosystems, but the city has a very long history and an excellent track record of protecting these areas, enhancing them even through development. Lily Valley West and many other areas that, wetland ecosystems have actually been improved following development. So I'm not saying that happens in every case, but we do take these seriously. And we believe we have complied with provincial regulations and, more importantly, our own higher standard.
Excellent response. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Manley, then Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, so just following up the RDN process, the difference between the RDN process and the city's process is basically that the mapping, there's a lack of mapping in the RDN, and so we're still following the same regulation, is that correct?
Yeah, I can answer that through your worship to Councillor Manley. Yes, effectively, the city does have the benefit of having extensively mapped watercourses. In the RDN, that's not the case. Largely, there are mapped watercourses there as well, but so in those cases, the qualified environmental professional will do a riparian area assessment and establish the streamside protection and enhancement area based on the provincial methodology. In fact, and that's from the natural boundary of the watercourse, whereas with the exception of wetlands, so for streams, the city's setbacks also apply from the top of the bank, so substantially better protection and beyond fish and fish habitat. So the city's watercourse protection measures go beyond, especially for streams, go beyond the riparian area protection regulations and include values beyond fish and fish habitat as well.
Now, I'm curious, I'm not sure what's going on in the process now, but I've heard that the province may be looking at this again. And if that is the case, there was a mention of a down zoning for conservation zoning. Is that a possibility if the province finds that that this is a ecosystem at risk or there are species at risk in the area?
Through your worship to Councillor Manley, if are we talking about this specific property? I know the province broadly is introducing changes to the riparian area protection regulations. They've sent out some guidance, and it's looking like 2027 will have to make some changes likely. It's just come out in June. Okay. So we'd be looking at evaluating the city's framework and updating. And just for additional context too, the city did an extensive update. We've had regulations in place for watercourse protection setbacks since the 1990s. We did an extensive update. There have been updates along the way, but we did an extensive update with the adoption of city plan. That did involve a number of qualified environmental professionals that have worked extensively in protecting ecosystems in our community and other communities that provided input into the updated guidelines. It also included referral to the province, an opportunity for the province to provide comment on the city's framework, and to ensure that it complied with requirements and that full professional considerations were included.
Yeah, so I'm just curious if there is something that's found with this particular property, is there still an opportunity for changing zoning for conservation zoning?
In the case of, so the development permit, if they can act on the development permit as it currently stands, it was approved as it complied with the guidelines and bylaws in place. If they don't act within the timeline allotted through the development permit, which is 2 years from issuance, then as Mr. Lindsay mentioned, the increased setback to the small wetland, which is again beyond the riparian area protection regulations requirement, that would apply. So that would reduce the building footprint. If council wanted to, again, after the development permit, they'd have protection at least through for the proposed development through the length of the validity of the development permit. There's always a possibility in the future. Council is in control of zoning as well. There'd have to be careful consideration to any changes, but that's possible. Something that council could consider if warranted in the future with respect to any property and different values, community values within the community.
Okay, thank you. I do appreciate that the city has good setbacks, like for streams and rivers, and I know we've used those for developments, close to some of our other streams, like the Mill Stream. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kesselbrock.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Yeah, there just seemed to be some disagreement between whether that small wetland that was unmapped should have been subject to wrapper or not, and the QEP made the determination, because it was unmapped, that it wasn't subject to wrapper. And then we're hearing that, you know, there is overland connectivity and it should have been wrapper, and that's really where it's at. And we're looking into it. Well, that there is looking into the QEP report through the Biology Institute. Yep.
If I is a question, I can answer that. Sure. Thank you, through your worship. So the small wetland, my understanding, and I spoke to this previously. Mr. Bridges was here speaking to it as well. There is a hydrologic connection. It's been evaluated by two qualified environmental professionals to confirm that it does not, wrapper does not apply to the small wetland. The mapped, unmapped situation has no bearing on that. It's the interconnectivity, the way it's connected. And my understanding, I'm not a qualified environmental professional, but I rely on them. And two of them have reviewed it thoroughly and confirmed that the riparian area protection regulations would not apply to that wetland.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. And I think that's just where there's community disagreement, and that's, you know, we rely on the QEP report, and that's what we have to do. My question, though, is just with the develop with care recommendations put by the province. I know there's some recommendations around setbacks for certain red listed amphibians and that. Our setbacks aren't totally aligned with that develop with care recommendations, and that's really comes from the QEP. When would be the opportunity to review and where would we do it to better align with those provincial regulations? Should the opportunity, you know, we take that opportunity, like, would we review it could we look at our DPA 1 or DPA 2 and the develop with care recommendations to create more alignment in there? Would that be the appropriate place, or would we be looking into the riparian bylaw if that's something that council would be interested in doing? Thank you.
Through your worship to Councillor Gesselbrick, so certainly council could look at increasing, enhancing development permit area requirements related to that. Something we have to consider carefully. Obviously, would recommend, and we did include through city plan multiple qualified environmental professionals providing input and considering the appropriate professional guidance through their associations as well. But it is something that could be considered through amendments to the city's development permit area guidelines.
Okay, great, thank you.
So, Your Worship, can I just add on to that too? Because I think
Please,
a couple things there. Yeah, a couple things there I'd just like to add on to that I think are important. And I think maybe I heard Council Gesselbrick refer to federal protection there, which is, I just want to be clear, does not apply in this case to private lands. And the other is, I don't think we agree with the statement that we do not comply with our provincial guidelines. Our guidelines, we believe, are in compliance with the provincial, and they were reviewed by the province when we brought in and Mr. Holm just said this moments ago, they were reviewed by the province when we brought in city plan and our new development permit area is just, what was that, three years ago now. So we don't understand or agree with the statement that they don't comply with provincial.
Great. Just to clarify my statement, I don't disagree that we're out of compliance with provincial legal regulations. My understanding that there is a series of recommendations called Develop with Care that do have some recommendations on certain setbacks and things for different species and ecologically sensitive areas that are not legally binding, but are something that are for consideration for development. And that's what my initial understanding is. That's something that we could review should we want to consider some of those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to express my thanks to Mr. Holm, Mr. Lindsay tonight. I think this has been extremely useful from the perspective of public education around this issue. I'm not going to hold back. I think staff have been the subject of unreasonable criticism from various sectors in this community, which they did not deserve, and I think what was said tonight helps explain the process and how these matters are dealt with very carefully. The next is administrative reports, Friendship City relationship between the City of Nanaimo and Jiangsu, China. Ms. Mercer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Manhas, and she'll do a brief introduction of the report and answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Manhas, good evening. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. This report seeks Council's approval to establish a Friendship City relationship between Nanaimo and Yangzhou, China, to approve and also to approve the attached 5-year Memorandum of Understanding. This proposal falls under Nanaimo's Friendship City policy, and it is non-binding, goodwill-based relationship. It's intended to support cultural, educational, and economic connections. The application was submitted by the Nanaimo Jiangzhou Friendship Development Association. It's a registered Nanaimo nonprofit that will manage the relationship, and we have members of this organization with us this evening as well. Staff reviewed the application that was received, and we're satisfied that it meets all the policy requirements. It demonstrates strong community and business support, alignment with city priorities, including sustainability, education, and economic development, a structured 5-year activity plan as well with annual reporting. This relationship requires no city funding. It does not require additional staff or operational resources. It limits the city's role to recognition, protocol support, and receiving annual reports. The attached Memorandum of Understanding that you have as D reflects the Friendship City relationship policy with a 5-year non-binding term, including reporting and termination clauses, confirmation of no financial obligations for the city. And this is a community-led, policy-aligned initiative. Therefore, staff are recommending that Council approve the Friendship City relationship, approve the MOU, and authorize Mayor to sign on behalf of the city. Thank you very much.
Ms. Manhas, thank you very much. I know you've put time into this, and I much appreciate the work. Any questions for staff on this?
Sure.
Councillor Manley?
This is the same process we went through with the Japanese sister city. It was Seven Potatoes that initiated it and continue kind of working through that relationship, or?
That particular relationship was actually 30 years ago, so we didn't have a policy at the time to guide what would happen in terms of outcomes, projects, and so that's our longest standing relationship for sure. But now I think with the policy that was passed through Council last year, we will actually see more results in terms of projects and community engagement as well in the future for any Friendship City relations that we enter into.
Great, thanks. I really appreciate having a local organization that's leading it, and it's not costing the city and taxpayers anything, and it's yeah, a nice open process. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone care to move the recommended motion? Moved Councillor Eastmere, seconded Councillor Perino. Discussion on this? Councillor Eastmere? Oops, sorry, Councillor Thorpe actually beat you to it.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, if I may. Thanks, Ms. Manhas, for your work on this. The first thing that stood out to me, as Councillor Manley just pointed out, was no financial cost to the city. I think that's worth repeating for the viewers tonight. Secondly, I'm certainly reminded of the recent visit we had from the Japanese delegation from Saitama and how positive that was, and the good relations that I think have developed from that already. The reality is we have a large number of Chinese Canadians in our community, and they absolutely enrich our city with their contributions. The Chinese Cultural Society is very active, and we appreciate their work. So I just think this is a good fit. The world is a much smaller place than it used to be, thanks to technology. So I think this raises our city's profile in terms of cultural and economic contacts, and can only benefit us. And I'll also point out, Your Worship, and I think it is mentioned in the report, that VIU depends to a fair extent on international students, and I think this will also enhance connections there that might benefit our local university. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Eastmere, but I think Councillor Thorpe was in for a question first, so anyway, go ahead.
I'm happy to see this come forward. I really appreciate the leadership from the Nanaimo Chinese Cultural Society on this. I think the vision of this friendship relationship is a really good one. In your letter, it talks about Yangzhou's experience in ecological restoration, green urban planning, and sustainable tourism, potentially offering insight into supporting Nanaimo's green development goals, and in turn, our community's leadership in coastal sustainability, community-based environmental stewardship, and ocean-related innovation. So I thought those were beautiful points and really spoke to some of our city's greatest strengths. So I really appreciate your work on this.
Very good. I'm not seeing any other speakers. All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a new relationship. The next is item B, invasive plant activities and bylaw update. Ms. Bhopal Singh, please.
Good evening, Council. While staff take their seats here, we're bringing back to you a response to some direction from Council last year to look at invasive plants, banning them, sale and distribution in our city. I just want to flag for you that before Ms. McDonald gives you a brief overview of the work staff have undertaken on engagement on this, Council gave us direction to draft a new bylaw. We have found that looking at our existing business license bylaw, that proves to be an effective tool for Council to consider updating. So just wanted to flag that for you. So over to Ms. McDonald. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms.
Thank
McDonald,
you.
good evening. Welcome.
Good evening.
Ms. Davis.
So as Ms. Bhopal Singh mentioned, we're circling back from a motion that came to the GPC about a year ago, and it directed council or directed staff to begin a phased process to draft a bylaw. Staff reviewed a number of options for the development of this bylaw and landed on the most appropriate being a fit with the business license bylaw 7318. Attachment B, Attachment C outlines the amendments that would be required in point 10, and also in that bylaw, the consequences for if there was a sale are already outlined in the existing bylaw and would apply if council decided to approve the amendments at a future date. We also did some exploration of what other municipalities are doing as far as addressing the sale and availability of invasive plants in their municipalities, and found that we're still actually unique in our approach and our consideration of this. There's only a handful of municipalities with similar types bylaws, and each of them has taken a different approach. There's a variety of bylaws that they have used, with none of them being a sole bylaw that addresses sale alone, and those are actually summarized in Attachment B in your report. Second, the motion from a year ago asked us to partner with local retailers on a public awareness campaign and begin engagement, which, as Ms. Bhopal Singh mentioned, we have done. So there's been engagement with 12 and now 13 actually nurseries around town that are selling plants either seasonally or all year round. We have found that the reception and back and forth between staff and the nurseries has been really positive, far and wide. And many of them have come back and said that they're happy to partner with us in the future on sharing information, allowing the public to have, or us to have awareness campaign materials there that talk about the pitfalls and why we don't want invasive plants in our community, helping to identify them, and also helping to identify where we can safely dispose of them on a community-wide scale. So we found that very positive and have started to develop a number of materials for future sharing with the nurseries. There's still more work to do, but we're really pleased with the progress that we've made. And if you've been out to community events recently, you've probably seen our staff with samples, actually cuttings of different invasive plants, and they've found the uptake in the community who are coming to them and asking questions to be really positive, especially at the night markets. And attachment D outlines a number of the engagement results that we have found. And then lastly, just wanted to update on the invasive plant strategy and how we're supporting the long-term reduction of invasive plants within the community. Staff have really been busy with activities around this, and they're outlined in attachment E in your report. We've been working together, both staff and volunteers, to achieve similar goals throughout the community in reducing invasive plants. We've really seen a rise in popularity of our support programs over the last few months, and actually, you might have noticed, but through the first third of the year up till May, we've actually seen a 100% increase in the number of partners that have come to the city requesting tools and looking for direction on strategic locations that they can partner with us on in reducing invasive plants. And typically what we would do with a group like that is support them through a tool lending library, definitely education if needed, and we'll go to the site and do a walkthrough if needed again with the group. Often there's a restoration planting component that follows, and then long-term we try and have groups adopt a site so that there's long-term ownership, weeding, and that it's not just a one in and out. All of these sites and projects require really long-term maintenance to be successful, and so we try and work with groups to strategically direct some of their activities and are continuing to do that. So that's all
Thank you
for
very
me.
much. Councillor Brown, please.
Not a question, Your Worship, just a quick comment. Thanks so much for this, and I just thought the approach was very elegant, so thank you, and we'll be happy to support it.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff? Councillor Eastmere?
I don't have a question, but if there's no other questions, I'd like to move option 1.
The recommended motion.
That is the recommended motion, and
And is there a seconder? Councillor Perino?
Thank you. May I speak to it? So I want to really thank staff for the work on this report and on the outreach campaigns. I loved reading the work that has been done so far and all that you learned, and I really appreciate the work that went into this. I know this stemmed from a motion that I originally brought forward on options to prohibit the sale and spread of invasive species, and I really loved what came back with the phased approach to drafting the bylaw, and then also partnering with the local retailers and updating the invasive plant management strategy and resource materials to really get that knowledge out into the community. And I think the huge 103% jump in requests for work parties in just the first part of 2026 is a credit to staff's work on that and the increasing public awareness around this. And I know a lot of work has gone into this, so I greatly appreciate the time and energy. In the same way that I appreciate the amount of time and energy that volunteers in our community and park staff have put into removing invasive plants. And for me, all of this really came about because I was volunteering at some invasive plant work parties throughout the city with organizations like Broombusters and NALT and the Seed Agrihood and the Garry Oak Ecosystems Recovery Team, and also particularly Hunter Jarrett, invasive species guy on Instagram, who toured me around to some of the really special areas where the glory of the Garry Oak ecosystems can really be seen, and what's left of them, because they're under threat from climate change and from invasive plants and from development, and really hearing that we need to go upstream and stop some of these invasive plants from getting into our environment in the first place. And this is one of the proactive things with banning of the sale through the business licenses, and then the public awareness campaigns and the city-supported work parties. So it's a credit to all the work of the volunteers, and they've put hundreds and thousands of hours into protecting our community, and this is another step that we can take to hopefully make the job easier in the future and continue to be proactive on this, because our environment deserves our special attention on this. So thanks for your work.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, if I may, I first of all do support the work of staff and the time you spent developing this bylaw. And having said that, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to support it. I did not support the original proposal simply, well, maybe not simply, but because I feel this is not a big problem. Invasive species, yes, but it's almost exclusively on public lands, which we do not have control over. And this bylaw is aimed at private homeowners and what they can and cannot purchase and what local retail outlets can and cannot sell. So while I would be all in favor of a campaign based on education, I'm not in favor of a bylaw that comes down heavy-handed in terms of business licensing restrictions. I think this restricts the rights of private citizens and what they put in their own home gardens. And I refer to your report where it says in one spot, and I quote, "No respondents," this is to do with retailers, "no respondents reported carrying listed invasive species. Most outlined internal policies to avoid invasive plants and indicated alignment with like-minded suppliers. Most also expressed interest in partnering with the city on future public education initiatives." That's what I would support. I just don't see the need of a bylaw, as I said. And you say that only a handful of municipalities have similar bylaws. I can understand why. I just think this is a solution in search of a problem. So I'm sorry, but I won't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Manley, and then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I do support this. I have invasive ivy in my yard that I fight every year that nobody planted there. It's something that the birds dropped off after eating some berries and doing their business. We have holly all over this area, and I don't know if you've noticed, if you throw some holly on a fire, it burns like gasoline. It's extremely dangerous. It's an invasive. It's not a safe thing to have in our forests. The same can be said of broom. It's highly flammable. Broom that's growing along the side of highways and along hydro lines is basically a wick for wildfires. And so we have seen some of these species sold before, and I think it's good to have it clear in a business bylaw that it's not an acceptable practice, and whether it's a practice that's happening now or not, we should ensure that it doesn't become a practice in the future. So I'm fully willing to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I too will be supporting this bylaw. I do recognize that, yes, it's going to go after some property owners, but as somebody who bought a house that's full of invasive plants, it's very hard to get rid of, takes a long time, and I don't think we need them. I do note that the retailers are already working with them, so I don't see putting a bylaw will be a problem because they're already working and they agree with it. So I think it's really important that we do send a message that, especially as you start, even though most people aren't buying Scotch broom, but somebody did eventually, it's extremely flammable, and I think even from our emergency fire management, I think this is a good policy to put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thanks. Quick, through you, you know, it's heartbreaking to see invasives, you know, taking over places that we love to go through, and I think it's a multi-pronged approach to deal with it, and there's been great education, and really appreciate the volunteers out there making a dent in it, and you know, having a bylaw here banning the sale is just one prong of a multi-headed approach. So I think it's important to do, and happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to support it, but I must say I have some sympathy for Councillor Thorpe's position on this. When this matter first came up, my general sense was that it was an unnecessary, potentially, regulation because there wasn't a problem necessarily, and frankly, the staff report to some extent confirms that. As Councillor Manley's pointed out, the invasive species that are of the greatest concern are all on public property. They're hydro right-of-ways, the highways, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, having said that, when the evidence contained in the report indicates most businesses are already doing the right thing regardless, it's not going to hurt to have it in place. It's rather like passing a law before something dreadful happens. At least you've got something to rely on if something dreadful does happen. So I'm prepared to support it. Seeing no further debate, all those in favor? Councillor Armstrong, Eastmere, Councillor Gasselbrock, Mayor Crowe, Councillor Perino, Councillor Manley, Councillor Brown, and those opposed, Councillor Thorpe. Thank you very much. Thank you to staff. Appreciate the work on this. The next is Housing Target Progress Report, 2025, July 1st to 2026, June 30th. Mr. Holm, please.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship. This is just very briefly going to turn it over to Ms. Brinkman, but this is the second annual, the full year of reporting under the Provincial Housing Target Order. There's a lot of information included in the report to Council. Part of it is reporting to the province as well. We've provided a presentation and an update on development activity in Nanaimo up to date this year. And I maybe should just mention just briefly that, yeah, I mentioned this is the second annual, so the second full year of reporting to the province. The period runs from July 1st to June 30th of each year, the reporting period. Well, the targets are, the housing targets are directed at municipalities or directed at the city. Basically, they largely rely on market conditions, market forces to achieve the targets under the current system, the housing system. So Nanaimo's housing targets are basically being met currently, I'm happy to say, for the second year in a row, but they do rely on the current housing delivery system, and you're going to, which is largely market driven, and you're going to hear from Ms. Brinkman on some of the details, but so on the whole we meet the targets, but when we get into the breakdown on non-market and supportive and some of those harder to achieve using market forces, when we get down into some of those details, there's some more challenges there, but Ms. Brinkman will speak to that. And fortunately, there's lots of good work happening to help achieve those goals as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brinkman. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. I want to acknowledge that the housing information we're presenting tonight is a supplement, really. You received a Health and Housing Progress Report by Ms. Wood at the May 11th Governance and Priorities Committee, so there's good housing information there. And I know Ms. Mann has presented the State of Economy Report, and there was good housing information in there, and that was on May 25th. So this is adding to that good information. So Nanaimo is one of 40 municipalities being given a housing target order. And as Mr. Holm mentioned, our reporting period is July to June each year. And so we are pleased to report the city has approved occupancy of 853 net new housing units, so exceeding the target of 835 units, and we also met the target in year one. And this slide is about rental units. The city has issued occupancy for 535 rental units, exceeding the guideline target in year two. The guideline is that 59% of the housing units in the time frame be rental units, and in year one we had done 94%, and this year 62%. So a healthy vacancy rate is 3%, and the city's current vacancy rate is 2.2%. So despite our success with constructing rental units, we do still need to construct more in the city. It is helpful. We continue to see an increase in secondary suites being constructed, with more than 4,000 being constructed since 2005. So this slide is about the bedroom mix of housing units. So that's another one of the guidelines issued by the province. And so our guideline for studio and one-bedroom units was not quite met in year two. We would like to see more one-bedroom units in multifamily buildings. However, it is good that the ratio this year was a bit better. So we have more one-bedroom and studio bedroom units than we did last year proportionally. Our guideline for two-bedroom units was exceeded in year one and two, and
In year 2, the guideline for 3-bedroom units was not met, which was a bit surprising to us. We will continue to monitor this, but in time we may want to encourage more 3-bedroom units in townhouses and multifamily buildings. We have been tracking unit sizes, so the amount of bedrooms in multifamily buildings since 2022. And so between 2022 and 2025, the average has 62% studio and 1-bedroom units. So when you look at, over a few years, the need is more closely being met if you kind of look at it more broadly. And similar for 2-bedroom units, we're always meeting that need in our multifamily buildings. But for 3-bedroom units, the average is 12% over the few years. So like I said, we may need to in time encourage more 3-bedroom units in townhouses and multifamily buildings. So this slide is about the below market and supportive housing. And I know there are few, if any, municipalities in BC who are able to meet this target. We are not alone in this regard. So we did have 100 hearth supportive housing units last year, and this year, unfortunately, no occupancy permits issued for below market and supportive housing. But I do want to say we do have a lot coming. So this slide shows the 411 BC housing units that are coming soon, and building permit has been issued for 3 of these developments. So we're really hoping by next July, we can see occupancy for 1850 Boxwood Road, 355 Nickel Street, and 1125 Seafield Crescent, which is seniors housing. It's also worth noting that each year the city turns market housing into below market housing by issuing rent supplements and rent loans to keep people housed using online accommodation platform funds. So 96 rent bank loans and 213 rent supplements were issued in 2025. So we are finding creative ways to help address the need for below market housing. We also offer many supports for non-market housing. We are proposing to pre-zone more than 2,000 parcels for non-market social housing. We have regular staff-to-staff meetings with BC Housing to help move developments along faster. We issue annual development cost charge reductions for non-market housing. We issue annual property tax exemptions for non-market housing. And we administer housing agreements annually to secure non-market housing. So there are more than 1,400 social housing units in the city, 338 supportive housing units, and 259 temporary housing beds currently in the city. And a huge thank you to all the nonprofit agencies that build and manage these units. They are contributing a great deal to our housing need. We wanted to show this year a map of the supportive housing in the city. So the small icon shows sites that have less than 10 units, and the larger icon shows sites that have more than 10 units. And so we continue to encourage the even distribution of supportive housing throughout the city where possible. This year, we wanted to also provide data about housing agreements. I know those are presented to council individually, over the past few years. So this is just a summary. So a housing agreement is a legal document registered on a certificate of title that is a commitment that the property owner to provide that type of housing for that site. While there are approximately 40 housing agreements the city has in various phases, there are 26 housing agreements that are registered on title where the units are built. And those 26 housing agreements secure approximately 13 housing units in the city. 400 of them are rental units and 900 are non-market units. And the 900 non-market units include housing for seniors, youth, First Nations, and supportive housing. Also wanted to highlight some of the support the city has offered recently to housing for the Nanaimo Nation. The city has contributed land for housing at 355 Nickel Street and 1435 Cranberry Avenue, and these are BC Housing funded developments. In 2025, the city issued $30,000 of online accommodation platform funds to the nation for rent supplements. The city completed an infrastructure analysis for housing on new reserve lands by Vancouver Island University to allow development there in the future. We have regular staff-to-staff meetings between BC Housing staff, the city staff, and the nation's staff to discuss housing projects. And the city provides homelessness outreach support to the nation's health center as well. So I'm going to turn the rest of this presentation over to Mr. Holm, and it's kind of moving away from housing target order aspects, more to just generally planning and development overview for 2025.
Thank you, Ms. Brinkman and Ms. Brinkman's team and others on the housing file in the city. There's actually a significant number of staff involved and projects underway that Ms. Brinkman touched on, many of them related to addressing the city's housing needs. I'm going to speak more generally to some of the development trends, just really briefly, to give council a sense of sort of what we're seeing over time in the way of development and where it's happening and some of those types of things and some of the major projects that we're seeing. So this is building permits issued. So as opposed to occupancy permits issued, which are the numbers that Ms. Brinkman was reporting on, these are building permits issued. So they've got approval to commence construction. And you can see there's quite a lag sometimes. If you look at, say, 2022, 2023, significant number of building permits issued, and we're seeing those result in some of the larger projects. They're 2, 3, sometimes longer, up to 4-year build-out. We're seeing some of those achieve occupancy now. So that's reflecting positively in some of the numbers Ms. Brinkman was reporting on, and you can see overall, we're average over a 10-year period, 973 units issued building permit. And you can see a bit of a breakdown between multifamily, single family, and suites for 2025 there, and as well as over time. So you can definitely see the trend is towards significantly more multifamily or percentage of units as multifamily units. Year to date for 2026, as of the end of June 30th, 584 units compared to last year, 476 units. So that's units that have been issued building permit for the first half of the year. Here's small-scale multi-unit housing. So you can see that's the significant change that the province made in 2024 to require basically 4 units on every lot within the city over a certain size. So you can see there's a significant number in progress, and quite a few have been issued occupancy already as well. You'll see them sprinkled throughout the city, a lot of times in older neighborhoods where the housing stock has reached a point where it's being renewed and replaced with 4 units typically on a lot. We're seeing largely 2 units, each with a suite, is kind of the standard that seems to be marketable in that form. So as far as distribution of housing, you can see just a quick snap of where we're seeing housing in the city. You can see multi-family, single family, and then the small-scale multi-unit. As I mentioned, you can see the small-scale multi-unit are sprinkled. It's a little bit hard to pick up, but they're sprinkled in a lot of the I say older neighborhoods, I guess, with older housing stock and larger lots. Number of major projects. This is just the top 4. There's many. Communities are much more than housing, obviously, and significant investments, thankfully, in healthcare. You can see here the Cancer Center. So these are building permits by value. So this is the value that was recorded when the building permit was issued. So the Cancer Treatment Center, by far and away the highest value permit for the city in the last year, in 2025. You can see as well Jesse's Place, Jesse's House, sorry, Children's Health Foundation, another significant project in the hospital precinct. We have a car dealership, the Nissan dealership, at Island Highway, 3612 Island Highway. And then as well, and Ms. Brinkman touched on this one as well, 1125 Seafield Crescent is seniors affordable housing, and that's by Woodgrove Seniors, hopefully achieving occupancy in the near future. And that's another great addition to affordable housing for a population that's in need. This is just a quick snapshot of the 5-year average of sort of precursor applications to building permits. So we see rezoning, development permit. Maybe just just quickly focus on units approved in development permit. That's the fourth row down. You see we have on average over 5 years roughly 1,000 units approved in development permit. So that's a precursor to a building permit. So that bodes well, and kind of trends. You can see it trends fairly well with the numbers that Ms. Brinkman was reporting on. As well, you can see if you look at units proposed in development permit, the bottom row, you can see significant fluctuations there, and you can see actually 2025, almost 1,600 units proposed in development permit. So hopefully we see those move into building permit, and that would bode well for future occupancy and meeting our future housing needs. And just going to touch on a little bit of process improvements. There's a lot, but obviously we work on continuous improvement. There's always work to do to improve our processes and efficiencies. Council's aware of many of them. I'll just touch on a couple of them. So Council's aware that there's a digital platform that's been launched and is expanding that supports improved building permit efficiency, focused on it's a phased approach, working with very tightly with Carrie Ng with our IT department and Mr. Ng's team on the rollout of that, and we focused on small-scale multi-unit housing building permitting to start, and we're rolling out additional approvals through that process. We obviously, Council's aware, completed a building permit function review and update of where we're at with implementing recommendations to improve our building permit processes. Council expanded authority to delegate more approvals to staff in 2025. Those are administrative in nature, clarified and consolidated. So the form and character development permit guidelines, significant update to bring together a multitude of guidelines into one concise document for form and character development permit. That was a major project and supports sufficient approvals, and also alignment with city plan. A number of other projects, I won't go into detail, but Council will recognize many of these as significant items that have been before Council, and are some of which are actually for consideration tonight. Happy to take any questions. Hopefully this information is helpful to Council and anybody that's watching, and appreciate your support, and any questions we're happy to take. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciate the presentation. Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you. Through you, 2 questions, if I may, please. When I'm looking at the report and we're talking about that we're not making our things like on 1 bedrooms or whatever, most people don't want a 1 bedroom because they can't afford it. Where if they get a 2 bedroom, they can split it instead of paying $1,500 or paying $1,000 because they're splitting it. Has that been looked at? Like also the sizes? I take a look at the condo buyout that they're doing between the BC provincial government, federal government. 400 square feet. People can't live in 400 square feet or they don't want to. So are we actually looking at what is being built that's not being sold and why it's not being locally?
Ms. Brinkman.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Armstrong. I think what I've heard anecdotally, that you're right, two-bedroom units do tend to sell. There is a market for 2-bedroom units in Nanaimo, and I think that's why we see more of those being constructed historically. Information and just people closer to me do sometimes want a 1-bedroom unit because it is more affordable. So even if it's a couple wanting a 1-bedroom unit, that's lower rent for them as opposed to a 2-bedroom unit. So I think there's a need for both, for sure. And, you know, how the housing target order has been established is a formula presented by the province. And so and it's, you know, the same formula for all municipalities across BC. So I'm sure there's variation, and Nanaimo will be different than Vancouver, I suppose. So,
No, I just find
you're
it
right, that
interesting that
local context is
the
important.
condos that are sitting empty are all one bedrooms with less than 400 square feet, 2,200 of them. Obviously, people can't afford them because you can rent a two-bedroom a heck of a lot cheaper than a one-bedroom when you share it. And then my last question, we're talking about we want to increase our affordable housing and below-market housing. But how are we going to do that when the government has no more money to help nonprofits? Like, we as a city certainly don't have the millions of dollars required to build these. Like, when you look at the cost that there was just for the seniors facility alone. So where do they expect the city to get the money to support the nonprofits to get these? We do our part by giving land, DCCs that we waive. How can we do this without their support? And we know that there's no money right now. Do you have any answers?
Through your worship, you raise a very good point, and I don't know that there are good answers at this time.
Thank you. A great report. Thanks.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Perino, I'd like to remind everyone of slide 7. We have gone in unit-sized bedrooms, you know, three bedroom plus from 11% in 2022 to 9% in 2023, in 2024 9%, and 20% in 2025, which tells me that the marketplace is responding to the growing number of families in our community, which is exactly the young demographic that we hope to attract, who are full of vigor in producing children and buying goods and services. So there's a very positive slide in this deck, and I want to point that out. Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just on that development approvals from 2021 to 2025, the units approved in development permits, so for, units proposed in development permits, 1,581. What I'm wondering is, would you suggest that that would be attributed to the expanded authority to delegate more development approvals by staff? Is that been a helpful move? Because I know that was new from 2025.
Through your worship to Councillor Perino, so it's definitely been a helpful move.
Good.
It makes it more efficient. It improves timelines but I don't think it's not driving people to propose projects. I think it's partly there's a response to there's been some changes in building code.
Yes.
There's been, as Ms. Brinkman mentioned, the vacancy rate in Nanaimo, actually it almost reached 3%, and then it started to drop again. So there's still demand in Nanaimo.
Definitely.
And then there's other factors, you know, at play as well. We do see a number of applications coming in ahead of changes to development cost charges, but as well provincial code changes will drive people to move projects forward ahead of the implications of the code updates.
Okay.
But yeah, the market is still fairly strong.
Pretty hot, yeah, it is. So the only other question, you know, just turning that back around, the fact that we've had so much trouble getting new planning staff to help to get these going through the process and get them moving along, has that slowed down our system for us?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Perino, yeah, undoubtedly it has. Thankfully, we're, as of, I believe next week, fairly well-staffed. We've managed to hire a number of staff in planning, and Ms. Rowett, who sends her regrets, she wanted to be here tonight, but is, you know, working with a strong team there and some new staff to move those units proposed in development permits to approved. So
just what I wanted to hear. Thank you so much. That's good news. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions for staff? If not, someone care to move the motion to receive? Councillor Eastmere, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We're at 9. We'll take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 9:10, everyone. Thank you.
Named after one of Nanaimo's most notable celebrities, Diana Krall Plaza is an open public space in the heart of downtown Nanaimo. The space is one with plenty of potential, but most days it serves as little more than a space to pass through or to access the credit union or public library that have entrances that face the plaza. In essence, Diana Krall Plaza is a space that has yet to find its heartbeat. However, one event does make great use of the space each Thursday evening throughout the summer. The night market along Commercial Street brings food trucks, artisans, vendors, and entertainers in, transforming Diana Krall Plaza into the lively destination it was always meant to be. As downtown Nanaimo is reimagined, the goal for this key plaza is to carry the energy of the night market forward in a way that sees the space used well throughout each day and every season. Diana Krall Plaza was established in the late 1990s when the Port Theatre, the Harbourfront branch of the Vancouver Island Regional Library, and the Harbourfront Parkade were built. The plaza sits atop that parkade. This was a new approach to open space in Nanaimo, but the problem? The plaza was, and typically still is, empty. As the roof of a parkade, the plaza suffers from structural load limitations. The plaza can't support big trees or heavy features. Blank walls on adjacent buildings and minimal art leaves the space feeling uncomfortable and uninviting. Over the years, design ideas were brought forward, but none were realized. That, however, is about to change. In 2020, an advisory committee of volunteers, businesses, Vancouver Island University staff, and students, and the City of Nanaimo came together to re-envision Diana Krall Plaza. Their goal? To create an actionable vision for the plaza that will lead to real change. Building on this groundwork, a project team held community workshops, a design charrette, and put in many hours of volunteer effort to create realistic ideas that would animate the space and make it feel inviting. Features like warm lighting, intriguing art, comfortable seating, and shade will bring the vision to life. The renewed space would also be a multi-purpose and ready for outdoor patio usage, informal play, and many different events, big and small. Now armed with ideas to greatly improve both the physical and social character of Diana Krall Plaza, the design development for the first phase is underway, and with it, a new rhythm is being created for the heart of downtown Nanaimo.
There's a wing flutter of starlings, little specks that swoop low and then rise, gliding over cushions of air, like the gentle crest and trough of ocean waves, to fan out in oblivion. All is quiet and still again. You send ripples through still waters of ponds, making them glisten like 1,000 prisms bathed in the brilliance of a fall morning. Come dusk, you blow harder, and the leaves of the sprawling oak tree pirouette and glide in the air like little ballerinas, then sink onto the ground below. The breath of autumn. I stand atop a hill on an early morn and hear your beacon call. Your breath, as you whisper sweet nothings to the stately pines and conifers. You fly with your invisible cape, rustling through their slender branches to make stately willows dance and sway. You gently rise, your breath soft like a lullaby, as you transform maple trees from green to ochre to a flaming red, setting hillsides ablaze with the fiery plumes of cedars. You ascend to the grey sky to make wispy clouds play hide and seek with the setting sun. You send ripples through still waters of ponds, making them glisten like 1,000 prisms bathed in the brilliance of a fall morning. Come dusk, you blow harder, and the leaves of the sprawling oak tree pirouette and glide in the air like little ballerinas, then sink onto the ground below. A family of furry squirrels scurries down the rugged trunk of the old dogwood tree to nosedive into a pile of crinkled yellow leaves that were once skittering down the cobbled sidewalk. Welcome, autumn. It is fall. Cloud-mottled sky, shadow-flecked Mount Benson, silver-spangled Long Lake, silent creeks echoing shrill cries of a golden eagle that resound far and wide. Sparkling streams meander lazily, their mercurial waters networking the lush green fabric of a city called Nanaimo. Come summer, bushed heavy with blueberries and blackberries, skirt trails that wind through forests of oak and age-old cedars. Ducks and herons play hide and seek among the tall, swaying bulrushes, pock-marking still waters of a pond. Daisies smile and nod through overgrown ferns and nettle, all silently waiting, an expectancy that hangs in the air, a yearning for something new, a new season, a new makeover of nature. It is fall.
This is a City of Nanaimo storm drain. This is also a City of Nanaimo storm drain. The only thing that goes in this is rainwater. Anything other than rainwater ends up into the ocean, which ultimately affects the marine life. There's many different styles of catch basins. These are just two, but they both collect rainwater. One has a fish stamped on it. That's telling me that it's unprocessed and it goes directly to an environmentally sensitive area. This is the outfall, so anything that you put in that catch basin is ultimately going to end up into the ocean. If you have any questions about where to take your unwanted wasted products, such as paint products and petroleum products, you can contact the City of Nanaimo at 758-5222. You can also go onto our website. You can also download the Nanaimo Recycles app. Please do not throw material down the catch basins.
Downtown Nanaimo is home to one-of-a-kind shops, bustling cafes, and popular community events like the Commercial Street Night Market. But it hasn't always been this way. In the 1990s, downtown Nanaimo's charm was fading fast.
Development Servicing Bylaw and Manual of Engineering Standards and Specifications Edition number 15. Mr. Holm, you're going to introduce this?
Thank you. I won't say very much other than that is a long handle, and it's a bylaw that's from originally from 1989 with updates, obviously over the years, but still the core bylaws from 1989, as well as the report indicates it's an update attached to the new bylaw is an updated edition of the city's manual engineering standards and specifications, which guides the design and construction of all the civil works and road works, the pipes and roads and street lights and everything else that become public property within the public road at some point. I'll turn it over to Ms. Negrin, Claire Negrin, the manager of subdivision, to explain to speak to the bylaw, and we also have Phil Stewart here to speak to the Manual of Engineering Standards Specifications if council has any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Negrin. Mr. Stewart, welcome. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. In front of you this evening is a new subdivision and development servicing bylaw. And as Mr. Holm mentioned, this is a bylaw to replace our existing subdivision control bylaw, which has been in place since 1989. We were desperate to replace it before it turned 40, and we made it. It has been on the books for quite some time, but over the last about year and a half probably, knowing that the Manual of Engineering Standards and Specifications was also under review. We made concerted effort to bring both updates forward at the same time as a very holistic update. In the bylaw, the Subdivision and Development Servicing Bylaw, the front end, everything is fresh and new, and yet nothing is really changed from our current practice. The existing bylaw was quite out of date, and a lot of information was missing in our current practice. So what we've tried to capture is what our current practice is. So that includes a section about the process for application review of subdivisions, as well as the design, review, and construction process, which was not previously captured in the bylaw. Some of the updates to the subdivision bylaw, there's modernization of the language, like I say, and a much better coordination with the MOESS. Over the years, the MOESS has been updated regularly, whereas the subdivision bylaw has not, so there was quite a bit of redundancy between the two that we've managed to amend. We've updated and added definitions. A lot of these things are in keeping with changes in legislation over time, and other bylaws within the city that have changed. I mentioned we've included processes within the bylaw that weren't there before. We've updated the works and services requirements to make it clear what the requirements are. Those requirements were already existing in legislation, but now it's captured better in the bylaw. And we've also added, and this is probably the biggest change in the bylaw, is opportunity and clarity in the opportunity for alternative works and services. So this is where you'll see language about cash in lieu. And just to move over to the MOESS, you'll see in attachment A a link which is the amendment record of all of the changes. It's a very detailed record of every single change, every wording change that happened to the MOESS. Attachment B is a summarization of what those changes are, a bit more high level. There are changes to almost every section of the MOESS, and I won't get into the detail terribly, but if you have questions, Mr. Stewart, I'm certain, can answer many of them, most of them, all of them, I'm sure. You'll notice some of the changes are there that reflect small-scale multi-unit housing provisions that came in. We had to make some updates to water distribution, sanitary distribution, connections, and things like that. There's some updated stormwater management, as well as updates to the transportation section. And as I say, Mr. Stewart can answer those questions. And I did want to highlight, we did a fairly fulsome engagement process with our development community through the MOESS before they even started their amendments. They were meeting with engineers in town, and then towards the end, once both documents were drafted, we reached out to over 150 different contacts in town to let them know about the changes and ask for any feedback. We also sent it out to internal departments for review. So we're comfortable in knowing that everyone was informed about the changes in the bylaws and the updates that they'll see. So with that, I think I'll leave it, and if there's any questions, we're happy to take those.
Thank you very much. We've got Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, and Gesselbrock in order.
Thank you. 2 questions through you, if I may. Why did we decrease the sidewalks from 4.6 to 3.0 when we're already having so many conflicts on our sidewalks as it is?
Absolutely, it's a great question. So that particular change was in our mobility collector, so that's a certain classification of roads, and we were seeing a couple of locations where the 4.6 meter sidewalk was being constructed and it didn't quite feel right, so we decided to make it a bit more flexible and introducing that frontage zone that you see there. So you got a 3 meter sidewalk and 1.6 meters of frontage zone, which could be a sidewalk, it could be street furniture, it could be landscaping, depending on the context of the development. So it gives the development a little bit more flexibility onto what that particular character of that street could be. It could be downtown where you want a really wide sidewalk because you want a patio, or it could be somewhere that is a little bit more be less useful for that, and so you could have more landscaping or different things there. So it just gives a little more flexibility in those cases.
Thank you. And then my second one is, I know we're doing the narrowing of roads, et cetera. Have we looked at the fact that cars are now on average 5 to 6 inches wider and their turning radiuses are wider? So there's a lot of times we'll be waiting behind cars that have to wait till both lanes are clear because they can't turn because the radiuses, and I know we get emails on that frequently. Has that been looked at and addressed? And I know that's probably got to go to the province, but just wondering.
Through the mayor to Councillor Armstrong. So turning radiuses are something that's designed based on the different classification of streets and that type of thing, but there's generally 2 types of vehicle. There's a control vehicle and a design vehicle. So the design vehicle is generally a smaller vehicle, like our garbage trucks or some larger vehicles that use the roads regularly, and so we make sure that those ones can turn without crossing lane lines. And then there'll be control vehicles, which are your larger, more infrequent vehicles, which may need to take up more space in lanes.
I'm actually talking regular cars and regular trucks. We get comments in all the time, and I've sat behind cars that can't move because they need both lanes, because the lanes are too narrow now, because the turning radiuses have gone so wide on some of the new cars, like I noticed that on mine as well. I can't even turn into a parking spot anymore. I have to back in because it's too narrow to turn in. So I'm just wondering if anybody's looked at that, or if that's something that needs to go up the chain, like to the provincial or federal governments, to look at the changes in car designs, which are making it more difficult to drive on some of these roads.
Specifically to the passenger vehicles and the changes in car design, we haven't seen anything that has changed, like what if a pickup truck, for instance, can't make the same turn that a moving van could make, right? Like, so all of our movements are designed such that something like a moving van or a garbage truck could make it. So we haven't seen passenger vehicles that have had radiuses larger than a garbage truck or something like that.
Have you seen the emails coming into us with pictures where it's showing people can't make the turns?
I personally haven't seen those, but I will check with our
Thank you.
transportation department and talk to them.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere and Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you. Through you, yeah, my first question was about the change in the sidewalk widths, but that does make sense to me because I certainly have noticed that areas where it is the really wide sidewalk, and I think the flexible 1.6 meter zone where it can be landscaped or there can be seating or utility boxes, that I think makes a lot more sense to me. With the change to the modeled turning movement analysis instead of the minimum intersection radius requirement, is that expected to result in larger or smaller requirements?
Through the chair to Councillor Eastmere. So what we've seen when it was not modeled, that there would be some intersections that wouldn't be at a 90-degree angle and different radiuses, and it just requires the engineer to do a little bit more thinking. So you will have some intersections that will look different depending on the fit, and so they should be more suited towards what vehicles are actually going to use the roads and the geometry of the intersections, especially with retrofit situations where you see a more difficult engineering design for some of those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gusselbrook.
Thanks, Amir, through you. Just a question on the cash in lieu. What is the scope? And I guess primarily I'm interested in sort of those scenarios that we've talked about in the past where there is transportation amenities that seem kind of like stuck out in the middle of a road, out of place, and without development on either side happening. Will this address those more egregious examples, or is it sort of applied to something different? Thank you.
Yes, through your worship. That's the intent, that's the hope of how the cash in lieu provisions will work. The provision in the bylaw and the way that the cash in lieu that we have available to us will work is typically only where there's, projects within a certain, area. So do we know that there's a city project at the intersection or down that road that's coming in the future? Or is there an opportunity for a combination of resources of multiple developments that are happening at the same time? So it won't be, development in the north end financing roadworks in the south end. It won't work that way. It will have to be on a more localized scale. But we are hoping that it will reduce that piecemeal kind of approach to works.
And in some cases that's necessary and totally understandable, but in some cases this may provide a little bit more flexibility despite it being more localized in the application of the cash. Cool, that's great. Thanks for putting the effort and trying to figure out those ways, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a question. Under communication and community engagement, these draft documents were distributed for review and comment to over 150 different contacts, including engineers, surveyors, contractors, developers, biologists, and planners. Only 2 responded. That to me was a real shock, and I understand that you did reach out to several so that you would get a more rounded. So assuming once this rolls out, if we hear of problems and things that we missed, can we make changes later on? Because it concerns me that we did not, when I read it through, it's difficult for me not actually working with it on a day-to-day basis to understand how it works. These are the people that know, but if they didn't have time to respond, what if they see changes that need to be done later on?
Through your worship, that's a phenomenal question. What we don't want to do is let this bylaw sit for another 40 years.
Yes.
Right? So this is a fresh start. The MOESS, fortunately, there's already a process where it is reviewed and updated fairly regularly, probably every 2-3 years. And we'll do the same with the subdivision bylaw.
Excellent.
And that is what I heard on the phone was as I was soliciting feedback.
Yeah.
Is, we had some questions, but, we want to see how it actually
plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So that if we need to make changes as we roll this out, we can, because we learn as we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great.
Thank you. I want to ask my favorite question, Mr. Stewart, and if you don't or can't answer it, I'm sure Mr. Rosen hopefully can. What's a meter of sidewalk running nowadays, construction cost?
I like Mr. Holmes' answer. It depends on the width. If it's 4.6 meters, it's much more expensive than 3.0.
I'll settle for a range.
I think we're in the $1,000 to $2,000 a meter.
1 to 2?
Yeah.
Not more. Mr. Sims used to give me a bigger number.
Yeah.
Not that I'm unimpressed by the
Okay, well,
smaller number, it's good news.
I will go back and check my numbers because off the top of my head, I don't know.
Mr. Rosen. I'd like to remind the public what these amenities cost.
Not sure if the mic's working. I'll give you the classic engineering answer. It depends. But in the case of sidewalk, it often depends on if we have to construct stormwater infrastructure to support the curb work that goes along with the sidewalk. Oftentimes, the stormwater infrastructure is more costly per meter than the actual sidewalk itself. So that's why there's quite a big range. Like over the years, we've added a lot of sidewalk, but we've picked the low-hanging fruit first. So we've put in sidewalks where we have to put in little or no stormwater infrastructure. A lot of that is already gone, so whatever we're doing nowadays going forward often does require stormwater infrastructure, whether it's a ditch that needs to be filled in or what have you, or catch basins realigned and so on and so forth. So oftentimes that can at least double the cost of the sidewalk. So Mr. Stewart's answer of about 1,000 to 2,000 a meter, that's really just the sidewalk itself. If you have to do any stormwater work, it could easily be, an additional 1,500 a meter is not unusual.
Thank you very much. Councillor Armstrong.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's what Mr. Rose said, that we've done all the low-hanging fruit, and now we're into the more expensive sidewalks. So if it's just basic, yeah, it's cheap, but we don't have many basics left, so thank you.
Thank you. If there's no, sorry, Councillor Eastmere.
Can I move the recommendation?
Yes, please read it out.
That subdivision and development servicing bylaw number 7454 to replace subdivision control bylaw 1989 number 3260 pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Manley. All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that it pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None.
Move that it pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is E, Residential Tenant Assistance Bylaw. Mr. Holm, please. Thank you, Ms. Negrin. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to another item. I think it was highlighted a little bit earlier under the housing initiatives. And this is Ms. Brinkman's team again. I'll stall a little bit while they get seated, but this is residential, this is phase 2 of the tenant protection project. Overall, split into 2 phases. The earlier phase was the manufactured home community relocation assistance policy that was adopted by council, approved by council in November of 2025. And now we are going to explain the proposed residential tenant assistance bylaw for tenants within rental buildings of 4 units or more. And I'll turn it over to Christine Mays. Ms. Mays is going to present this for you and here to answer questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mays. Ms. Brinkman, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Holm. And good evening, your worship and councillors. So this staff report follows a presentation on the Rental Tenant Relocation Assistance Project, and that was at your June 15th Governance and Priorities Committee meeting. The purpose of this report is to introduce the Rental Tenant Assistance Bylaw 2026 number 7459 and related amendments to the Bylaw Notice Enforcement Bylaw, and that's 2012 number 7159 for council's consideration. And also, just wanted to let you guys know that Ms. Brinkman is also here to answer questions as well with us. So the purpose of the Rental Tenant Assistance Bylaw is to establish assistance measures for residential tenants facing displacement due to property redevelopment. The bylaw will apply to redevelopment, which is the demolition or partial demolition of a building with 4 or more rental units, and that'll include flexible requirements for non-market housing. The bylaw emphasizes ongoing communications between rental building owners and tenants throughout the redevelopment process, and that's to ensure tenants are kept informed throughout the process. Rental building owners will be required to provide financial compensation through the bylaw of 4 months' rent, as well as moving costs to tenants when a tenancy is terminated. An option for reduced compensation has also been included where a tenant enters into a new tenancy agreement with the owner, and that's at a reduced rental rate. Lastly, fines ranging from $250 to $500 are also proposed, and that's through an amendment to the bylaw notice and enforcement bylaw. Subsequently to the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting, we held an information meeting with the interest groups that we involved earlier on in the process, and that was held on June 25th. In response to those comments that we received from the attendees, staff added a bylaw provision which required communications to be provided in the tenant's preferred language. So just to note, the proposed rental tenant assistance bylaw, it offers a streamlined and balanced approach that increases financial compensation for tenants facing displacement. That's beyond the 1 month that's currently required under the Residential Tenancy Act. So going from 1 month to 3 months in moving costs. The proposed bylaw reflects the current market conditions currently in the city, as well the proposed financial compensation requirements align with the findings of the financial analysis that was produced for this project. Following adoption, staff will be preparing supporting implementation materials for rental building owners and tenants, and as well, if adopted, the bylaw can be monitored to assess its effectiveness. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Eastmere?
Thank you. So I just had a question about the financial compensation requirement. So it's the rental building owners required to provide 4 months rent. That includes the 1 month that already exists under the Residential Tenancy Act. But then there's the piece about reduced compensation if the tenant enters into a new tenancy agreement with the owner at a rental rate not exceeding 10% of the tenant's current rent. So if they move back into the same but updated unit and it's not over 10% of what 10% more than they were paying previously, is that?
So the intent of that provision was to have a seamless moving experience. So this is going from one unit to another unit in perhaps the owner's existing rental portfolio. So it's not meant to be a right of first refusal. It's an opportunity for an owner, if they have units in a different building, to be able to move them in if the rental rate doesn't exceed that 10%.
Okay. Okay, and so we don't have the right of first refusal at all in our policy then?
Correct, yeah. So this one didn't include right of first refusal. It was one of the enhanced options that was presented to the Governance and Priorities Committee, but ultimately didn't move forward. So this is sort of a secondary option to encourage rental building owners to house tenants in existing units.
I see. Okay, thank you.
I have a question, if I may. It came to GPC on June the 15th, June the 22nd. It was passed at council, and you had a gathering, I think you mentioned, on the 25th of June. Did any representatives from what I'll call the landlord community attend at that time? And if so, were there any comments received?
Primarily, the attendees were nonprofits, and we did have also one attendee from ACAI, so the Accessibility Committee. And that was, we didn't receive any landlords or developers attended that meeting.
There was, as I recall, though, a letter received from the Provincial Association of Landlords. I'm not sure what their name was. That's correct? Mr. Holm?
Yes, that's correct, Your Worship. That was Landlord BC. Did submit correspondence.
And one other question, refresh my memory. How many communities in the province are we aware have this similar kinds of provisions that allow additional compensation beyond what the Residential Tenancy Act, the provincial statute, provides?
The regulations from the province are relatively new. At time of writing the GPC report, 8. And that didn't include municipalities that have existing policies in place and that are potentially converting those into bylaws.
So we've got 220 municipalities, something like that, in British Columbia. Give or take, I think, the membership in the UBCM, including regional districts. Ms. Brinkman, you can help me.
To your worship, so the ability to pass a tenant protection bylaw is quite new. Was really, I think, is it November 2024 that was made? So that would be partially why there's only 8 established so far in the province.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, Councillor Eastmere, do you want to? Going to move the recommended motions, or?
Yeah, I guess I still had a question through you to staff, was that I did think the right of first refusal was built into our policy.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, through the chair to Councillor Eastmere. That is indeed sort of the case. It is something that the owner can offer. It's just not built into the bylaw itself. So it's not a requirement that it be provided, it's that the owner could provide it.
Okay. Can I move it and then speak to it? Okay. So I move that Residential Tenant Assistance Bylaw 2026, number 7459, to support residential tenants displaced due to redevelopment, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Reno. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
I'll speak to it at second reading. So I move that it pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Manley. Wish to speak to it?
Thank you. So while I am glad that we are bringing in some new pieces to assist when tenants are forced to move because of redevelopment, I just want to acknowledge that it doesn't provide the full protections that I personally feel renters need and deserve. Particularly the right of first refusal to move back into a unit in the same building at a rate similar to what they were paying before redevelopment. And I think that without vacancy control in the province, we are going to continue losing affordable rentals at a rate that is going to push people into homelessness. And I think that we do need to see leadership from the province on this, because it is the province that is pushing the densification and the redevelopment and the building of more housing, but at the same time, they aren't giving renters the protections that they need to be able to live in an affordable unit. So I think in the city, we're really trying to do what the province is asking and support redevelopment and support densification. And I think this is a good small step towards assisting renters, but if even with 3 additional months of rent at market rate, if you're forced to move from a place that you've been living in for 10 years, you're very quickly going to go through that money and be living in an unaffordable rental again. So I know that at the city level, vacancy control is likely not something that we are going to take leadership on, and that means that landlords can't jack the rent at sort of any rate they want in between renters, because as the mayor likes to say, today's unaffordable housing is tomorrow's affordable housing, but that's only the case if you have vacancy control. So I think this is a good small first step, but I want to acknowledge that without the ability to have right of first refusal and returning at a similar rate, it's not going far enough to provide the protections that are really going to make a difference to renters. And I want to see the province step up with rental subsidies and ensuring that the affordable rentals that exist today continue to exist, because we know that their operating agreements for some of our local affordable rentals are running out in 2028, and people are going to be in a very difficult situation seeing their rents jump up far beyond what they can afford these days. So we're doing a little bit, but we need to see more from the province on this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to offer a somewhat different perspective on this. In the height of COVID, the provincial government decreed that there would be no allowable rental increase whatsoever for landlords across British Columbia. That included someone who wisely and happily provided this province and this community in particular with a basement suite in their house that provided affordable accommodation. Notwithstanding that taxes may have increased, mortgage rates may have gone up, expenses in general. I do have some concern, and I'm very sympathetic to long-term tenants who face what is referred to as renoviction, but there is an aging housing stock that does require replacement, and as we hear over and over again, today's unaffordable housing stock is tomorrow's affordable housing stock. That is a reality in a province where we don't provide the kind of assistance or build the amount of subsidized housing that is appropriate for the roughly 20 to 30% of our population that requires it, such as you would find in what I will call more advanced nations in Europe, where it is very common for people to enjoy the benefit of state-supported housing on a fairly constant basis. But under our current system, there is no question that adding further regulation, adding further cost does have an impact of discouraging anyone from becoming involved in renting. The whole slow process that the residential tenancy branch was suffering a few years ago, when it was hard to get anyone evicted for even the most outrageous behaviors, and I used to get those complaints in my constituency office all the time when I was the MLA, had the impact of discouraging some people from abandoning renting their private suites in their own homes entirely. So as we move forward with this, the reason I asked very specifically about comments from what I would call the landlord community is because we're adding substantially a burden on landlords, and we cannot think that every building is going to be the 100-unit owned by a REIT and a real estate investment trust, et cetera, et cetera. It will impact on somebody who owns a 4-unit apartment building in town. As I will support this, but I put out this warning that we should be careful and cautious as a community, that we not be the leader in something where the province is not prepared to in fact legislate themselves in an area which is properly their jurisdiction. We're up for second reading. All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Eastmere.
Move that it pass third reading.
Seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
I move that bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw 2026 number 7159.27 to establish fines for non-compliance with residential tenant assistance bylaw 2026 number 7459 pass first reading.
Seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that it pass second reading.
Seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that it pass third reading.
Seconded Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. We're on to F, consideration of an amendment and third reading of off-street parking regulations bylaw 2026 number 7453. Mr. Holm. And thank you, Ms. Mays. Ms. Brinkman.
Thank you, Your Worship. And really briefly, this is one that, so this is a new off-street parking regulation bylaw that Council gave 3 readings to previously. In reviewing the bylaw and the number of development applications as referenced in previous presentation tonight, that we have upwards of 1,600 units sitting in development permit, expected to move forward for development permit approval and then hopefully building permit. We wanted to make sure that we were providing protection for in-stream applications. There's no this change to this the parking requirements. There's no in-stream provision within the Local Government Act to provide protection for those applications. So we wanted to introduce amendments to the proposed parking bylaw to ensure that in-stream applications were protected from the change in bylaw. The proposal here would allow applicants to choose whether to apply the existing bylaw or the new bylaw to their development. Happy to take questions on this. Hopefully it's straightforward and makes sense. This requires rescinding of third reading and then rereading of the bylaw with the recommended changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Hong? Councillor Eastmere?
Move that,
You would want to hit your, thank you.
Move that council rescind third reading of off-street parking regulations bylaw 2026 number 7453 to regulate off-street parking and transportation demand management within the city of Nanaimo.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Oh, sorry, Councillor. No, not yet. Not yet. Councillor Eastmere.
And pass third reading as amended of the off-street parking regulations bylaw 2026 number 7453.
Pass third reading is. Yes.
I thought I read the words on the screen. Did I not? I read exactly
I'm not
what was
looking
up
at the
there.
screen.
It literally says as amended.
Says that.
Okay, I'm gonna read.
I think it's okay as she read it. So she made a motion to pass third reading as amended of the off-street parking.
As amended.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Perino. Now, Councillor Thorpe.
Confused. No, very quickly, I support the amendment because it gives protection to applications that are already in stream. But as you might recall from our earlier meeting, I did not support the changes to off-street parking regulations, so I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
I echo Councillor Thorpe, same reasons.
Very good. No further discussion. All those in favor? Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Mayor Krog, Councillor Perino, Councillor Manley, Councillor Brown. Those opposed, Councillors Armstrong and Thorpe. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is item 13, development reports. Development variance permit application number DVP 494-3452 Blackfoot Way. Is there anyone present wishing to speak to development variance permit application number DVP 494-3452 Blackfoot Way? Not seeing any. Anyone care to move the recommended motion? So moved, Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is B, Covenant Amendment Application Number CA23-2137 Boundary Avenue. Again, is there anyone present who wishes to speak to Covenant Amendment Application Number CA23-2137 Boundary Avenue? Not seeing any. Moved Councillor Manley, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. C, Housing Agreement Application Number HA20-5343 Dewar Road. Councillor Eastmere.
Move that housing agreement bylaw 2026 number 7458 to secure the terms and conditions of occupancy for a residential shelter at 5343 Dewar Road pass first reading.
Seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that it pass second reading.
Seconded Councillor Armstrong. And discussion.
I just want to say I have had complaints from that area. I've asked them to call the police if they are legitimate, and just so that the people know this actually will give us more control over issues. So I will be voting in favor.
Thank you. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. Move that it pass third reading.
Seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that council direct staff to register a Land Title Act Section 219 covenant to reinforce the terms of the housing agreement following adoption of the bylaw.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to D, temporary use permit application number TUP 29-156 Victoria Road. Again, is there anyone present who wishes to speak to temporary use permit application number TUP 29-156 Victoria Road? Not seeing anyone, so moves the recommended motion. Councillor Manley, seconded Councillor Eastmere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is E, rezoning application number RA 510-1821, 1825, 1885 Northfield Road. Councillor Eastmere.
Move that zoning amendment bylaw 2026 number 4500.260 to rezone 1821, 1825, and 1885 Northfield Road from 3 and 4 unit residential R5 to medium density residential R8 to facilitate a multifamily development, pass first reading.
Seconded Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None.
Move that it pass second reading.
Seconded Councillor Perino. And Councillor Perino, you wish to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just to say that I know this area quite well. It's within walking distance of the hospital. It is close to a school. I'm pleased to see this. This is a good place for it.
Thank you very much.
Hope we get a few three-bedroom.
Councillor Manley.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd also vote in favor of this because it's close to parks, amenities, and everything else. This is where density belongs, so happy to support.
Very good. No other speakers. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that it pass third reading.
Seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that council direct staff to secure the conditions related to zoning amendment bylaw 2026 number 4500.260 as outlined in the conditions of rezoning section of the staff report dated 2026 July 6th prior to final adoption.
Moved. Seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Next is 14 bylaws, Parks, Recreation and Culture Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2026 number 7340.01. Move the recommended motion. That's actually Councillor Eastmer's job, but that's okay. I don't think she'll be hurt. Councillor
Your
Perino
Worship, could it,
seconded.
sorry, could it be read out?
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's a bylaw, it needs to be read, like, out, so.
Has to be moved by the acting mayor.
Move that Parks, Recreation and Culture Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2026 number 7340.01 be adopted.
Seconded Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Item 15 is correspondence. Literacy Central Vancouver letter of support request re their application to the Government of Canada's New Horizons for Seniors program. Anyone care to make a motion? Councillor Manley, sorry, yes?
Yeah.
Yep.
Move the motion, great organization. So happy to support the New Horizons program. It's a really good
And a seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Perino. Any discussion? Councillor Eastmere?
I just want to speak to the critical work that Literacy Central Vancouver Island does in our community. They are a social enterprise with their bookstore, Well-Read Books. They provide some really important frontline educational services for folks, tutoring, computer skills. The New Horizons for Seniors program is really important, and I'm just really grateful for the volunteers who make this work possible through Literacy Central, and I really am grateful for them existing in Nanaimo and for their legacy of literacy. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We have two notices of motion. Councillor Eastmere, a notice of motion re the interim use of 6 Commercial Street. She'll be bringing that forward at the next meeting. And likewise, Councillor Eastmere, notice of motion re the Lost Intersections Public Art Installations. She'll be bringing forward at the next meeting. We're on to other business. Councillor Armstrong, motion re crosswalk design honoring veterans. Please.
Just like to move the motion. It's been a request from many Legion members. The reason for the delay was we were waiting for command to make sure that there was policies in place, as there's been some concerns at different Legions about different designs. So now that we have that, we're bringing it forward for working with the Legion. And I would like to note that we're not saying that the city's paying for it. We're looking at different funding options that will be brought forward at a later date to the city.
Thank you very much. Seconded, Councillor Manley. Wish to speak to it further? Okay, thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. If I may, I just want to thank Councillor Armstrong for bringing this forward. And in full disclosure, will tell everybody, if they don't already know, I am a Legion member, as I think Councillor Armstrong and others may be as well. And I know the members that I have spoken to are very excited about this possibility, especially considering that this year marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Royal Canadian Legion. So I'm very hopeful this will be passed and successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock and then Councillor Manley.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. I'm definitely in support of this. I think it's, exciting to honor veterans and have the crosswalk painted. And I'm noticing painted crosswalks appearing in other neighborhoods, and then we've got one in central Nanaimo, and I think it's something that we're probably going to experience more requests and desire to have painted crosswalks, and pretty cool to have that be part of our city identity. And I 100% support this going forward, and also I think we will probably be experiencing more requests, and maybe having something of a formalized process in place as things go forward. So yeah, excited to see this happen. Bye.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you. I'm happy to support as well. I think that Cenotaph and Dallas Square is a perfect place to do this. I was under the understanding, though, that we were working on a plan to redevelop that part of the street. Like, isn't there going to be a redesign in this area at some point?
I think it's fair to say, and Mr. Rose can comment, but there was certainly a discussion about that, but I think those plans are on the back burner, if I may say it politely. Mr. Rosen, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Through Your Worship, there's certainly nothing active at the moment going on in terms of intersection redesign at that location. The reason I came up and sort of wanted to highlight just a bit of a concern around that location in terms of painting a crosswalk there. Like, typically we like to have, because when you paint a crosswalk with artwork and stuff like that, it can be a little bit of a distraction. So we'd like to have intersections that are like four-way stops or all-way stops where everyone is coming to a stop anyway. Just provides a little bit more comfort that we're not creating a bit of an unsafe situation. So that particular intersection may not meet our criteria. So just a cautionary note on that particular location, that's all.
Thank you, and I do note the wording of the motion is a preferred location, so we'll be discussing this further.
Just quickly, are we going to see any redevelopment of Dallas Square in the future, or that's just off the plans right now?
I'm not aware of anything in the works at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. No. All those in favor and any opposed, none, motion carries. Councillor Eastmere, your motion rezoning for data centers.
My motion is that council directs staff to prepare an OCP amendment bylaw to require that any future rezoning applications for a data center include detailed information on daily and yearly water use, energy consumption, and energy and water conservation plans.
Seconded, Councillor Manley. Discussion. I'm sorry, but this isn't. Question period follows the agendas, the completion of the agenda. You can ask a question after we've dealt with the matter, but not before, but thank you. Discussion on this?
Thank you. So I'm bringing this forward because there is a very high degree of public interest and concern around data centers, and I believe rightly so. There are a lot of unknowns with these projects, and there's no reason that the degree of water usage should be one of those things, particularly at the rezoning stage. And in discussions with our city manager and CAO, Dale Lindsay, he shared with me that the rezoning stage is the most appropriate place and time to receive this information, and that also gives council the ability to, at our discretion, put a covenant on the amount of water use, and that's something that we didn't have an opportunity to do the last time a data center rezoning came to council, because there was no information on the water usage provided at that time. And so in speaking with staff, the expectation would, if this motion were to pass, would be that water conservation measures could be considered through the application, and the report at the rezoning stage would speak to that. And water conservation commitments to address the policy could be secured through rezoning. And so if this policy had been in place in 2022, the report would have spoken to water conservation measures and would have likely recommended measures that we did not have a chance to implement. And for myself, coming onto council between third and fourth reading on that data center rezoning, I was looking for information and none of my questions could be answered. And I shared with colleagues that I had great concerns about the degree of water usage, and some said to me that they weren't concerned at all. And I think that's changed, and I certainly hope that has changed from our city's leadership, given the degree of public interest and desire to really know where our water is going. And yes, Nanaimo's in a good situation relatively with water, but we are in a climate emergency and we are seeing rapid changes, and I think we are going to really need to prioritize certain projects over others and based on community need. And so this isn't an ideological stand, it's simply to make sure that we are doing our due diligence as a council at the rezoning stage to have all of the information so that we can make an informed choice. And this is the time when council has the ability to make a choice when it comes to a data center, because these are site-specific rezonings, so you'll have a specific project in mind, and it's likely that council doesn't get another crack at these applications because, like the past data center application, after rezoning, it was a delegated authority, so it went to staff, and council didn't have any other hand on that application. And so yes, a covenant on water use was secured by staff, but that was not something that council had any information about until it was a done deal. So I just want to make sure that we have all of our information when and if another data center application comes forward to council.
Thank you. In order, Councillors Brown, Manley, Armstrong, and Perino. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just first and foremost, I think regardless of the whether that had been a delegated authority or not to council, ultimately the application was in alignment with our development permit guidelines. But I do think I agree, I think, with the underlying intention here that there is some uses that at the point of rezoning, it is nice to have more information. So I can understand the intent, and I think I can support the intent. However, I don't actually think the OCP is likely the correct place, and I'd like to ask a question through you to staff. Would not a standalone policy or the DAI bylaw be the more appropriate place for requesting this of proponents at the time of rezoning?
Mr. Holm.
Thank you, through Your Worship, to Councillor Brown. Yes, there could be, rather than OCP policy, we could look at development approval information bylaw requirement related to this, to the issue. Would get at the same information desire to support the rezoning, or possibly a standalone council policy as well, specific to the issue. So yeah, an official community plan amendment is, well, it's definitely, I guess, one way to get at it. There's definitely, I think, some probably less, some more efficient and more direct approaches that could achieve the same thing as you'd suggested.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I think Thanks for that, Mr. Holm. I think that confirms for me that I think probably the OCP is not the correct approach, but likely council should be furnished with a report on the options in the more appropriate place. And I say this for two reasons. Like to amend the OCP, there is a legislative required process that can be onerous. And I think of the couple of the previous motions of Councillor Manley that there may be times where council wants some additional information on a use, this council or the next. And so always having to amend your OCP to do that might not be the best place at all, where there's standalone policy, where it's single motion, not legislated process, or through the DAI bylaw, the more appropriate place, so it can be more flexible and nimble as needed, but also changed as needed. Because if you add uses over time and you start to find out, hey, this doesn't make a lot of sense, you want to remove them. So I support the intention of the motion. I think it's important to, first of all, I think any data center coming in is going to have this information because it's got to be part of their cost-benefit analysis of building a data center in a jurisdiction. How much are they paying for electricity? How much are they paying for water? I support it from the community perspective, but I don't think we should just support an amendment to the OCP. We should probably do it through the DAI bylaw or a standalone policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you. That was interesting commentary there. I think one way or the other, we need to figure out a way to have a little more information on water and energy use, and appropriate siting in terms of distributive energy. If we got facilities that are cooking hot and needing a place to cool off, we see distributive energy systems in other communities that disperse the heat and use it in a way that's appropriate. We're told that we are in a good place for water, but we are seeing more and more droughts, and we've been told we don't need to build our dam up in a certain time frame, but we're affected by what happens in the whole region. We're trucking water to other areas where aquifers are draining, and surface water wells are in trouble. So we do need to be more aligned with ensuring that we protect our water sources and we protect our energy sources. We only import 70% of our energy onto Vancouver Island, and so these are important considerations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I think it's important that we also, when we're looking at this, that we differentiate between an AI data center and a storage data center, which is the one on, because there's difference in water usage, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's important. I think we need to be looking at closed loop, which I think that's one of the things that we'd be looking at. And the other thing I would like to say is that there's 1, 2, 3, I think 4 different resolutions coming to the UBCM on this, pushing the federal government and provincial government to come out with proper regulations, because there is no set regulations across the country. It is a priority for this federal government to build AI centers. So if they're going to do that, then let's have proper regulations so that we're not stuck in this boat. I think I do agree with what Councillor Brown said. I think it might be better to put this, instead of an OCP amendment, to put it under the development process. The other thing I would like to ask of staff on this, and it's kind of related but kind of not, because the BC government is responsible for determining if they're going to get the electricity or not. Is there a way that before we start doing all this work beforehand, that we wait to find out if, like, I understand the rezoning part, but is there a way that instead of us doing all this work, that we wait to find out if they're even going to get their electricity? Because right now they said they're only going to do 6 projects, and there's something like 20 in the lineup. So why would we take staff time to do all this work if they're not going to be approved for electrical, or unless they're going to do their own? Like whether it be through nuclear reactors as they're doing in Alberta, or natural gas, which I don't think the province is allowing. But there's just a question, like, I think that we're doing a lot of work, and I look at all the work that's been done on this, and we still don't even know if it's going to be approved to get the electricity.
Mr. Holm.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Armstrong. Yeah, certainly I appreciate the question there. It's obviously that without a power source, without significant access to electricity, they're not going to proceed. The province, obviously, and BC Hydro, obviously, is the generally the source and the authority. I don't think that we can have discussions with BC Hydro, but I'd be surprised, well, two things. I'd be surprised if BC Hydro would be willing to commit power to a project that, or go through approval to a certain point for a project that wasn't, that didn't have some level of certainty from a land use perspective. Also, I'd be surprised if the proponent, they have to go to a certain level of design and to satisfy Hydro's, to identify the power needs and to satisfy Hydro's requirements. And I'd be surprised if the applicant would be able or prepared to do that. Obviously, I think it's in their best interest. An applicant would have to do their due diligence in siting one of these facilities to know that to have some level of certainty that the power would be available and that the off-site costs would not be prohibitive. So I think to actually have approval of the power supply prior to rezoning, I think would be could be challenging. We can have a conversation with Hydro about that, but I think they're between the applicant doing their due diligence and some of the measures that the province is putting in place. I think you won't see proponents putting forward proposals unless they're fairly certain on the cost and access to power.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perino, then Councillor Gesselbrock, and before I go back to Councillor Eastmer, I'm going to say something.
Thank you, Your Worship, and just a question through you and then a comment. So, Mr. Holm, the issue then of getting provincial approval has to come after the rezoning. Is that the way it works now? I guess, because my concern is why can't we get provincial consent first before we go through the whole process of rezoning and putting the public through this? I'm just confused.
Well, through Your Worship to Councillor Perino, I think that politicizes potentially I mean, they're going to want to know. They're going to want to know that they have the land use approval to go ahead with the project.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to want to, and they're going to want to know that when they're dedicating power to a project, that it's fairly certain to proceed.
Okay.
Is my understanding. I mean, we can definitely have a conversation with Hydro about that, but I don't think they're going to be interested in fact, they can share, once a project is going through approval stages, they can really share very limited information with us.
Okay.
But I don't think they're going to want to commit to power to a project that, or that the applicant would want to go through the design details necessary to get that commitment prior to having any certainty with respect to the land use.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. So the important thing for us to remember is that if you have a phone or a computer, you're going to be using AI. This is an important, AI is part of our future work. It's everything that all of us are doing on a daily basis. So I want to support this motion, but the trouble that I have with it is that I think Councillor Armstrong's made some excellent points about the type of AI center that we're looking at. I think Councillor Brown has made some excellent points. Going through the OCP amendment, that is just such a process. We need to minimize doing this. And so I'm not sure that this motion is correct at this point, and that's the struggle that I'm having, even though I want to support it for all the reasons that you've said, Councillor Eastmer. So I'm struggling at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Vopal-Singh.
Your Worship, with all due respect, there's many routes we could take to this. Both Mr. Brown and Mr. Holm are correct that you could do it through the development approval process. However, the purpose of an OCP is to set broad policy on how you approach things. So the OCP is still a route you can take to achieve the same objective. So I just wanted to put that there for council's consideration. We have the OCP as a broad-standing document that sets the direction on a number of things that we do, and so I just wanted to say that if you want to use this as a tool, it's one that can be pursued. Thank you.
Councillor Gesselbrock?
Thank you. I mean, there's been a huge amount of public interest and concern around the development of data centers, and I think that the concerns are incredibly valid. I think I definitely would like to have detailed information on the water usage, energy consumption, and energy and water conservation plans at rezoning. I think that's the appropriate place to have them. And when we had the rezoning come forward last time, one of the reasons why I voted against, because it wasn't very clear. And so I think there's a public expectation out there that we make sure that we have something in place. And I think that it's still agnostic to the development, but it's asking for the required information. And I think that's a very reasonable request to make. And I think the OCP amendment bylaw is a valid route to go about doing it. And I think it also signals, you know, the community's desire and intent around this. And so I support the motion as is. If councillors would like to make an amendment regarding other routes of having that information be available at rezoning, I'm open to hear that amendment, but outside of an amendment, I'm happy to support this, and I think that I'd be appreciated and timely to put this in place now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorpe, and then I'm going to say something before we go to second-time speakers.
Oh, thank you very much, Your Worship. I appreciate the comments of council on this one, and again, I find myself a little bit torn. Despite the words I heard from Councillor Eastmere, and I listened to the comments of some other councillors, and I can't help but feel that our debate is at least partially based on ideology and our support or non-support of data centers. And I have a concern that this debate will feed into fear and misinformation in the community. I'm not convinced that this is the right way to go. I understand the intent, and I do appreciate that. But I'm not sure that this is really even that necessary when, should we get applications, there will be regulations in place already. The province regulates the power that these places can use. Staff will have information on water usage that we will know about. And the concern that we're drawing down our aquifer that I've heard from some sources is totally erroneous. So I'm confident that should we get future applications, council will be informed of all of these concerns and we can deal with them then. So I think we're going to get the information that Councillor Eastmere is looking for anyway. I think there are regulations in place and more are coming, I'm quite sure of that. So I will continue to listen to the views of my fellow councillors, but I'm not convinced that this is actually the right way to go at this time.
My sense is, and I could be wrong, that subject to a few minor objections, that the vast majority, if not all of council, agree that having this information available at the start of the process would be useful and helpful for everybody. And I have heard from Mr. Holm an alternate way of ensuring that this occurs, and I've heard the comments from Ms. Bhopal Singh. I'm also conscious of the fact that the likelihood of another application coming before us in the next couple of months is pretty slim indeed in the circumstances. Honestly, I'd like to achieve the end, which I think we all agree it would be useful for public discussion, for our process as decision makers around this, to have the information that is suggested and mentioned in the motion. But I think I'd rather have a staff report telling me what the alternatives are that might indicate to me what's the more effective method short of an OCP amendment, which strikes me as perhaps over the top. I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Brown, and I don't want to see us move away from the goal, but I would like to see us achieve that goal in the most effective and I would hope least convoluted and challenging manner. So we'll go on to second speakers now. Councillor Eastmere, I'm going to go back to you because you were first before Councillor Armstrong jumped in, and then Councillor Manley.
Thank
Well,
you.
it's on my list. You see it differently over there.
So to me, it doesn't matter whether it's an AI or a data storage center, period. When it comes to us at rezoning, I want to have complete information about the degree of water usage and what their plans are for water conservation. And the piece about energy conservation and consumption was recommended to me directly by our city manager, Dale Lindsay. I'm not okay with making a decision in the dark at rezoning when there is such high concern around our water sources and the degree of water use. And with having that information at rezoning, there's no fear and there's no misinformation. What there is information, and we can combat any fears and anxieties by actually showing that we have the data and we can make an informed decision. And I'm sorry, Councillor Thorpe?
Sorry, you said something. Oh, I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Staff had no information for us on water use at the rezoning stage, other than, I was told generally it's closed loop and wouldn't use that much water. And then, later come to learn that it actually uses between 55,000 and 69,000 liters of water a day. I spoke at length with our CAO about the best course of action at the best and most appropriate time to request full information on water usage. He shared with me that it was the OCP amendment that is the best way to do that, because we already have site-specific rezoning for data centers. I also, in my original motion that I shared with staff, it was to request a staff report on options to amend the OCP to require that any future rezoning applications for a data center include detailed information, et cetera, directly from the city manager. He gave me the alternative that council direct staff to prepare an OCP amendment bylaw to require ... So the recommendation that we skip the staff report and go straight to OCP came directly from the city manager. I regret that he's not online to back me up on this, but I'm going to throw to Ms. Bhopal Singh.
Your Worship and Council.
Thank you. Ms. Bhopal Singh, please.
I think maybe I'll just take this back to the purpose of an OCP, and that basically sets council's direction, and it makes it clear what council's intentions are through policies. So whether it's this or something else, the OCP does provide a mechanism to set council's intention. And so this is where, whether it's this particular motion that Councillor Eastmere is looking at, you can achieve it through this. It makes it very clear how staff are supposed to follow through. So this would be why Mr. Lindsay would have guided Councillor Eastmere this way. And so the OCP is setting your direction. And so it is the place where if you wanted to see this achieved, it would make it clear to the community, it would make it clear to staff how they then implement things through other mechanisms. So through your worship, I just will state that this is an appropriate way to go. Thank you.
It's 10:25 on Monday night. What I want to hear from you, Ms. Bhopal Singh, is, given that there, I think, subject to some concerns, the belief that we should have this information in the process before the process starts moving any distance down the road, have this information available. Is the proposed motion the most effective, simplest, easiest way to do this that would essentially, and would be a requirement, not just a guidance to staff, but would actually require this to happen so that council would have this information in hand before rezoning?
Through your worship, the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I want to know. Councillor Manley and then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I just want
Councillor Brown
to remind council and council members that we got a email from the director or the manager of Public Works about going into stage 3 water restrictions at the earliest time ever. And that was because aquifers were being drawn down, because we were providing water to Lancefield while their wells were running down, that we were trucking water into surrounding communities where the wells were running down. The aquifers surrounding our community are stretched. They're struggling. We have a lot of development happening in this region, and water is an issue. We have a robust water system for the city of Nanaimo. We're lucky that way. But we also have neighbors, and we take care of our neighbors. And so sharing water is an important thing to do. Councillor Armstrong is dead correct. The provincial and federal governments need to regulate this. They need to regulate how water is used and cycled through these systems so it's not wasted. And they need to regulate how energy is used so it's not using horrendous amounts of energy for these centers. Data centers are important, and we need to have sovereign AI centers and sovereign data centers to store our own data so that our health data, our own personal data, is stored in Canada. So it is what's going to be happening. We are going to see more data centers built in Canada because I, for one, do not want my data subject to Homeland Security or any other American laws or American corporations. So I just want to make sure that we do it right and that we aren't making these decisions in the dark, and we do know how much energy is being used, and we do know how much water is being used. So I'm going to support this, and I appreciate the wise words of staff and the recommendation given to Councillor Eastmere to put this recommendation forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and then Councillor Brown.
Thank you. I will be supporting the way it is after hearing that, and there's no need for Councillor Eastmere to wish Mr. Lindsay was here, because we trust you that you would not be saying something that's not accurate. I will say too, I did a lot of research on a lot of these, because a lot of this, some of the hysteria is coming out of the States, which is the different rules and whatever and different sizes. Kamloops, for interest's sake, 35,000. That's what they use a day theirs, and they have 3 data centers in their community, and they're building a 4th. So I think it's very important that we do get that information on daily water use, because here we have one that says 60,000, yet they've got 3 that all operate under 35,000. So I think it's very good information to have. I think there's a lot of misinformation about the water use. And I guess one concern I do have, and I don't know how it would go, is that are we going to start looking at this for all businesses that actually use more water than a data center? And we've got lots of them in our community that do. So I just struggle with that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because we can still make a decision based on the information they give us, yay or nay.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I'm going to build off of actually what Councillor Armstrong said there. And to me, that's the crux of the argument, is like, I wholeheartedly support the intention of this motion. Oddly enough, I think the jurisdictions that are having these conversations are where you want to build data centers, because they're usually regulated hydroelectric electric utilities, and they're also usually regulated water utilities. It's the places that don't have those things that concern me the most. But I think what Councillor Armstrong said to me is the crux of the argument. Is I think this is an excellent one where more information should be had. But I also think through your DAI bylaw or more robust development permit guidelines, there's a whole bunch of other uses that will equal or exceed some of the water demand on as a data center, depending on the type of data center. And to me, that's where it makes sense to make those other bylaws more robust, and so that staff or council are empowered to request those decisions at the appropriate time, whether it's rezoning or whether it's development permit stage. And so, while I support the intent, I actually think it's missing the greater opportunity, and that is around water conservation. So I'm not going to support it. Like I said, I support the intent, but I think there's a better opportunity here to do it more appropriately. And I just respectfully disagree with the approach that was provided to Councillor Eastmere. Thank you.
All right. All the motions on the floor, we've all had a lengthy time to discuss it back and forth. All those in favor? Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino, Councillor Manley, Councillor Brown. You're opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we're on to question period, Ms. Gurry. The first is Mr. Annesley, 10C. Just have a seat. We're just doing it in order.
Hello, how's it going tonight, guys? I just wanted to ask a question about that $75,000 going to the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation. Is there a breakdown on how that money is going to be spent?
Ms. Bhopal Singh?
Through the chair to our speaker, through your worship to our speaker, the motion has actually given us direction to go to the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation and work with all the parties to determine what that money would be spent on. So at this point, we don't know because the motion's giving us the direction to have those conversations with them and then to come back to council with what the parties agree they would like to put forward to council for the use of the money.
Okay,
So,
all right.
thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Myerscough, and it's 12A.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is about the Friendship City program and the Sister City programs in general, and whether the city has looked at affording university students in cultural studies opportunities to learn with these programs.
Through your worship to the speaker, I don't believe we have, but I can follow up with that.
Okay, thank you.
And the next is Meg Rintoul, 17B. Ms. Rintoul.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As happy or unhappy as I am to see data centers on the agenda, I was going to question whether Nanaimo could think bigger. I mean, given the federal government and the provincial governments have downloaded any regulatory limits on data centers to the local governments. And the federal government appears to be cheerleading AI, but they're not jumping in to regulate. I'm wondering if Nanaimo could lead the initiative at the Union of BC Municipalities to establish technical review standards that could be applied throughout the province. We are not the only jurisdiction that is facing this type of sector of development, which is new and unique, and we are not experienced or knowledgeable enough to deal with it.
And your question is?
And my question is, could Nanaimo think bigger? I'm sorry, water and energy are important, but there are so many things we are not looking at in a data center. We seem to be satisfied that they're going to do a closed loop water. That's going to be more efficient for the data center. A closed loop system uses more energy, uses more water in times of drought, the hottest times of the year when we're in stage 3 or 4 drought, and also the refrigerant that they use in those cooling systems contains something called F-gas compounds. Now those are called forever chemicals because they never break down.
Ms. Rintoul, it is question period.
Okay, my question is,
about this.
okay, 2 questions. 2, could Nanaimo lead an initiative at the Union of BC Municipalities to look at the standard technical review that could be applied? Because we're not going to get it from the federal government, and maybe we can leverage the provincial government.
Ms. Rintoul, please, you've asked a question. Councillor Armstrong wishes to answer it.
Can answer that. There's 3 other cities already proposing that. It'll go to the UBCM. I believe it's Kamloops, Terrace, and one other that are all, I mean, there's 84 data centers already in this province. People just don't know. They've been here for years and years. It's just people don't know. We're getting all this information from the states, which is really driving a lot of this. But there is issues with it, and Terrace and Kamloops, and I can't remember the other one. It might be Merritt, because they've got another one going in there. Have these motions all ready to go forward, so there's no point us asking it. We just need to support it.
Short response is it will be the subject of debate at this year's upcoming UBCM in September. And your second question?
I have to think now because I thought I interrupted. Well, my other thing is we've passed this looking at water and electricity, but that is the tip of the iceberg for data centers. Are we looking at F-gas compounds, how they're going to be flushed into our water system? Are we looking at what we're going to do with the electrical equipment that contains these compounds, that's updated frequently in a data center? Is that going to our landfill? Is that going to be incinerated? Because these compounds just break down into smaller pieces. Like, are we looking at other issues besides water and energy? Because they're a very sophisticated sector, and they're very secretive. It is very difficult to get the information on their processes. And we need that expertise. That's all I'm asking. Can we look beyond the obvious? Because they are anything but obvious.
I think I can answer your question simply this way. The council deals with rezoning. Council issues business licenses. Council does not regulate a whole series of things that you have mentioned in your comments just now. It would be subject to provincial and federal regulations in terms of jurisdiction, and I hope you will take advantage of the opportunity to discuss this with both your MLA and your MP. We have a fairly limited jurisdiction, and appreciate your comments and understand what you're driving at. We have approved one rezoning a couple of years ago. There's no current applications before the council or before the city that I'm aware of. Mr. Holmes is nodding sagely yes, so we'll leave it at that. And we'll give an opportunity to Ms. Barnwell to ask her questions now.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Barnwell, please.
Thank you, Council. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you for giving a serious rethink to this whole question. When I was here almost 4 years ago, watching the fourth reading of a rezoning application for the East Wellington Data Center, there was no discussion among the council members. And so I'm seeing something very, very different today. I'm seeing that finally you have grasped what the issues actually are. And I want to remind you, before I ask my question, I want to remind you that the reason that we were vulnerable is that data centers have known all along that they approach the weak link in the chain, and the weak link is the municipality who's in charge of rezoning. And so the rezoning is the first thing that you go after, and then you go after all of the other things. And so what I'm asking you to consider is to make sure that that is not short-circuited, and whether you can put into position guarantees that, first of all, they're not going to get the rezoning until they have demonstrated all of the other things that we would deem necessary in terms of protecting our water supply. Because right now, there's no binding regulation on this one that's proposed for East Wellington. They'll pay a fine if they overuse water, but that's minimal.
So your question is, in light of the...
Can we get to the point of having binding covenants, not just feel-good covenants, binding covenants on water and power consumption, and noise? I would add noise as well.
I'm not sure that I can tell you that we can put binding covenants in place the way I think of a covenant, but perhaps, Mr. Holm, you could comment?
Well, maybe we could call them regulations, because there aren't any regulations for these things.
I appreciate that. Let's hear from Mr. Holm, please.
Yeah, thank you, through your worship, to the question. So there are covenants in place on the proposed data center, East Wellington Road, dealing with noise and water consumption. There are enforcement provisions within the covenants, but ultimately including a rent charge, which was referenced with respect to the water consumption. Ultimately, there's still the binding nature of covenants is really through the courts, ultimately. So a covenant is a legal instrument that ultimately, aside from the additional provisions, like the rent charge for a charge for overuse of water, there are, the binding nature of it would be through court action that the city could take against the landowner for contravention of the covenant. So that's the nature of covenants, so, and the legal mechanisms to enforce. So thank you. Hopefully that helps.
It doesn't. Can I ask, if there is no such thing as a binding covenant, in other words, you cannot bind them, what is going to happen if we, for example, run out of water and we can't turn off the data center's access to water or power once we've approved what we've already approved?
So that, I'll just say again, the nature of covenants that, through the Land Title Act, that local governments are allowed to enter into through the Land Title Act. The enforcement provisions are through the courts, so we can look at court action to enforce the terms of the covenant.
And is that likely to succeed? I just want to remind you that the citizens of this town are very concerned about this. And I am really heartened to see that you have all learned an awful lot since you made this first, passed this first rezoning 4 years ago. So I congratulate you on that. And I hope that you will continue with your stewardship of what you can be, what we do have control over as a municipality. And that is the rezoning and our water. So please do your best here. We're really counting on you.
Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Manley, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a long